the coach. His name was Dustin Felder, because remember, it was an acting class I had never done. So he was like, stand-up comedy is your into the industry.
Of all the teachers, I said the one guy that really made an impact that was palpable and tangible and gave me a different outlook was Bill Hall.
My dad, he's been in law enforcement for over 20 years. He taught like the 4 rules of gun safety.
It was always the Mets, but like right out of the gate, it was Carter and Keith Hernandez. Those were the guys.
You know, I just want to say thank you. I've been watching since I was a kid. Like I watched the Chappelle Show, and we would recite that shit all the time.
It surprised me how much I enjoyed. I coached my daughter's softball team this year. It was one of the best times of my life.
I dedicated this to Angela because I would not have done any of the stuff that I've been doing had it not been for her.
What's up? Welcome to the People We Love podcast. This is episode number 167, and I'm Adam Choit. For more, check out peoplewelovepodcast.com. That'll lead you to the link tree with all the links related to the show. Yeah, you can check out definitely subscribe on YouTube and on Rumble. If you're watching on Rumble, we're on Rumble now too. I'm at Adam Choit, Instagram and Twitter, adamchoit.com for everything else I'm working on these days. Yeah, these streams have been fun. Last week was a little crazy, but definitely fun. And I'm looking forward this week talking to a couple of friends of mine. We got data AI analytics professional Pablo Serrato, and he'll get more into the details of what he works on in his interesting journey in life, and also comedian Bert Hung returning to the show. So I'm looking forward to catching up with both of them a little bit. Let's bring them in. What's up, y'all?
Hey, boys.
What's up? We got Forest Mommy in the chat. What's up, Forest Mommy? Oh yeah, what's cooking, guys? So why don't we start with let's start with Pablo, Mr. Pablo Serrato. Where are you and how are you?
Well, I'm well. Thank you for having me. I was watching your intro. A lot of friends in your intro, people I know, people I love. So I'm based in Chicago, Illinois, but I am formerly of California. Born and raised in Southern California and lived in Santa Monica for like 13 years. And which is where I met you and a lot of the people in your intro.
Yeah,
so
nice.
Great to be here.
Yeah, you're a long time liberty-minded. Would you call yourself an activist, an organizer? Well, you've ran for some local positions. Are you a politician? How would you describe your political work?
Never have I ever ran for office. I'm a libertarian. I like to hang out. I like to go to comedy shows. I like to hang out in bars and talk to libertarians.
I can't tell how we became friends.
Oh, I know the day and date.
These are all things that I like. What were you saying?
I know the day and date. We can get into that later. But yeah, I met you at Dave Smith in March of 2018.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I met Angela McCardle. Also, was at that event that she organized. I always laugh about because I remember just kind of hanging out, probably with you at a table having a drink, and she walks over, very friendly face, trying to basically recruit me to be in the party. And I just remember thinking, "You're a girl. What are you doing here?" Things have changed, though.
Things have changed. Yeah. She's a great person.
Yeah. She's definitely an inspiring person. Is she someone who's been inspiring you lately, or?
Very much so. So I was a non-voting anarchist. I kind of just exited the entire idea of voting until she made a very good argument to me in 2017 when I first met her. That just like you want to have a firearm for self-defense, you also want to be able, at least at the local level, be influential and make sure that that you are defending your interests where it matters most, which is close to home.
Yeah, no, she did great work in LA with lockdowns and helping all kinds of local issues and all that. Have you heard? I mean, I haven't been in touch with her in a minute, but has she publicly announced anything about her plans or what her next position is?
No, she has not. But we're hoping for big things. In the last few weeks, though, it is sort of an amazing arc here. I've been a libertarian for my entire adult life, since I was called a libertarian by some leftist Chicano nationalist when I was 18 in college. He used it as a slur. said, "Oh, you're a libertarian." And I went and found out what that was and kind of leaned into it. But what is interesting is that like we've gotten a lot of really good news from the new administration, which is completely weird for me, who's used to just being horrified, especially over the last like 4 years, about what we're hearing from like politicians at a national level. So I think she deserves like a break, Angela, because she made a lot of this happen in terms of like libertarian influence in this.
A lot of good things are happening, and it's especially when you think about it compared to what we've had and what, like you're saying, your expectations. Even we'll get more into that stuff. Bert, how are you? What's cooking up by you? Where are you? How are you? I know where you are. Why don't you tell people where you are?
Well, you could tell from the background, I'm in my van. Nice to meet you, Pablo. I just want to shout out to libertarianism. I'm a huge Dave Smith fan myself. I believe you and I met Adam and I believe we met at a Robbie the Fire Bernstein show about maybe a year ago or so, I would say.
Was it my show or was it?
It was your show.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm on a little hiatus
awesome
from doing the comedy show. Yeah, that was super cool that Robbie did my show a couple of times. He popped by. That's super fun. What let me ask you who or what has been maybe inspiring you lately and maybe in the comedy world or beyond and whatnot?
Comedy, I'm kind of just doing my own thing right now. Like I still peek in here and there watching Kill Tony. Can't remember the last thing I saw. I mean, I've been watching like some shows, but yeah, just kind of doing my own thing,
You've been out there doing sets and going to making the rounds, mics and clubs and all that.
Yeah, just did a show at the Pasadena Ice House pretty recently. Other than that, just hitting up all the mics I can around Hollywood.
Nice. I'm curious. Have you noticed since Trump's win and since his inauguration, have you noticed the vibe different at comedy clubs at all? Has it become in a little bit? Have the crazy lefties calmed down a little bit? I think they've. In the few shows I've been where I've seen like sort of I can tell who's on the left. They're not talking politics as much. I think that's how they've changed. If they changed for the better, their views have not evolved, but they're just like, oh, we're not going to talk about the thing that's obviously less popular. But I'm curious your reaction to what's going on in the comedy.
Oh yeah, you nailed it. That's pretty much what I observed too. They're just like under death woes at this point. Whatever they say is kind of like pointless, so they're just going to fizzle out. But there's still comics that just accuse me of being too conservative, or just they have the TDS still, but that'll fizzle out over time.
Yeah,
or not. We're just getting to World War III.
Yeah, I always think about how when I see someone who's like on the left, a comedian, I could tell their politics, but I can enjoy, or sometimes they're able to enjoy, depending on how annoying they are, like their other jokes and their other bits, and it's always the strongest stuff when they're not talking politics. It's never they never get the biggest laughs from their own echo chamber for their political jokes. Any of their identity politics or politics, they never get their biggest laughs. It's always like something about their mom or making fun of their appearance or something universal. Like that's like these people think they're, they use the word inclusive, but their humor is actually more exclusive in a way, I think, because of the identity politics.
I know who inspires me now. I remember now. There's this lady named Leonarda Joni.
Yeah, I know who that is.
Oh man, she's on fire. I love her conservative viewpoints, and she is funny as fuck.
Yeah,
should I you won't hear that kind of stuff coming from the left.
Yeah, should I try to be her one Jewish friend? She's not afraid to go after Israel and beyond, but she's not wrong about a lot of things she says. But some of the stuff may turn me off a little bit. But I, of course, support her right to speak her mind.
I just love how big, like she's got bigger balls than most.
Right,
most
I do appreciate that. Yeah, her balls are very, very big.
Big woman balls. We're really inclusive here.
Who has bigger balls than Leonardo Joni?
I gotta buy her one of those Alex Jones hats, the biggest balls with a 47th on the side.
Yeah, I haven't done a deep dive on her comedy other than like some of the stuff like that I've seen pop up. I mean, some of the stuff almost can be a little bit antagonistic with the audience, but like I guess that's what
why I'm here.
yeah.
That's why we're here.
It's all entertaining, but I don't know. Yeah, nobody's perfect. By the way, what's up, Paul and Stoner and Forest Mommy? Paul here in the chat, Sib Rev. I was watching Courtney's stream, but came here. Courtney Burke, who was a past guest, so Adam knows where he ranks. I appreciate that. Do I want to read this? What does this say? I was at the Maryland District one. I know I told her that's sweet, but we use names now. I don't know what that means, but okay. Yeah, no, that's. Have you seen her? She's a New York comic, Leonardo Joni, right?
I believe so.
I think so.
All the clips I saw her at was at Austin, I think.
Yeah.
At the mothership.
Nice. Oh, so you got clips. You haven't been over there.
Oh no, yeah, I just been watching her clips. I haven't seen her live yet.
Yeah. Yeah. You know who that is, right, Pablo?
Yeah, I know who that is. I've seen clips. I do think that everyone here probably should go to Austin at some point. I haven't been to go to the mothership, but when I lived in LA, a really fun thing to do would be on a Tuesday or Wednesday night to go to the Comedy Store, because you would see people like that weren't on the schedule just kind of show up, like Dave Chappelle in 2018 showed up and did like a 45-minute set on Aziz Ansari. And this is like the weekend after his like Me Too thing happened, after he won some award. So it's really interesting and topical. I imagine that must happen a lot in Austin these days.
Yeah, that is one thing that's cool about the Comedy Store and these clubs. You never know who's going to come by. And it's like, I don't know how much time you spend over at the Comedy Store, but there's a cool patio out there where you can rub shoulders with comedians of all levels, and it's just a fun vibe. 2-drink minimum, huh? No, that's all good.
But the best nights to go in LA are actually Sunday through Wednesday, right? That's Thursday, Friday, Saturday just seem too busy, too packed. And if memory serves, like that was just the best time to find parking, get in and out, and have a great night.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate you guys both coming on. It's super cool. But you know what I feel like you guys kind of have in common a little bit? You're both like, because I've had conversations with you, Bert, online too, but you're both, as the kids say or may still say, fairly pretty based people, and you both like love I mean, you're not a comedian, Pablo, but you, like you said, love comedy and you're a comedian. But you guys are also not blowing smoke up your asses, but obviously you're both very intelligent people just from your professional endeavors outside of Bert, outside of comedy, because you're a licensed CPA, correct? As well, I recall.
Used to be. Well, I'm inactive, but
Inactive.
I still have the CPA moniker after my name.
Yeah, you were doing that for a long time, though, weren't you?
Oh, I'm still doing it. Accounting is like my profession. I just choose to practice unlicensed. I'm raw dogging it, man.
Allegedly.
I like my accounts like I like my firearms unlicensed is kind of a riff on a libertarian joke here.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys are activists. That's cool. You guys are what's the technical term when you're an agorist, you're an anarchist? What is he? He's practicing voluntarism. He's subverting the state. What is the term?
I think counter economics or whatever. Just I think any rational person in 2025 would meet your definition of what it means to be based, because the opposite, like we saw basically like a sort of, I don't know if this is the right analogy, but like the Cultural Revolution in the 1960s in communist China, where young people were denouncing their people who were older or their parents who owned property or whatever in the streets in order to support like the regime. Like we saw something similar happen 2020 through like 2022 with like vaccines and like all this, what you can call wokeism or whatever. But the majority of people don't think like that. The majority of people actually don't have any like ideology at all. The term libertarian means nothing to most people because they don't have any like political sensibility at all, which is good and healthy, which is why comedy is such a canary in the coal mine for like the direction of a society. Because when you start policing like a joke, that means that there might be something else going on culturally or politically or philosophically in a society. So Yeah, comedians are freedom fighters, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I appreciate it's important to have base comedians, shit posters, people who say offensive things. Like it's in some ways it's as important, and they feed into each other. The idea that like you can say a foul word or even like a hate speech, as they like to call it, that's just as important as being able to speak out. I think a controversial political view. I think because you need to be able they if you're able to say the joke or the you know the racial epithet or the hate thing, whatever it is, if you can say that, you're in a free society that's hopefully free enough to be able to, you know, have citizens that challenge the powers that be, so to speak.
Yeah. Does everyone here know what the ACLU stands for? American Civil Liberties Union. It's a nonprofit legal organization that fights for like civil rights and like civil liberties. In the past, in the 70s, they used to defend like the rights of like literal Nazis to march in like predominantly Jewish towns. Like here in Illinois, there's a town called Skokie, where they took a very famous case all the way up to the Supreme Court in order to defend the First Amendment right of these powerless, demented freaks that called themselves Nazis in the 1970s to able to march or whatever. That's kind of a line, and that's kind of where like the barrier of free speech is. Free speech isn't jokes. Free speech is actually people saying unpleasant, ugly, despicable things, but they're not using violence. So like to me, comedy is a much cleaner, smoother, more elegant layer where I can go and, you know, enjoy free speech and have a drink and, you know, not have to deal with like literal Nazis.
Are there any other parts, or not aspects, categories of free speech beyond political free speech where it might be pushed back against, or like, I guess, offensive jokes or something like that, just like crude language? Like where's free speech challenged? Where do we need to like be on the lookout that maybe I'm not thinking? I guess, or is that just that covers everything?
The basic thing is like, yeah, just that joke, that ability to like express yourself in public. I'm trying to think of like things that are not like Dirty Dancing, the 1980s film.
Expression, I guess, expression beyond words. I guess that's you have to be able to free to dress how you want, and I guess these things are all interrelated. Freedom's a good thing, I guess. This is not that complicated. What's wrong with there's just a lot of corruption and stupidity in this world.
It's not complicated. Basically, anyone who wants to censor your speech is just they're the bad guys. Just it's that simple. Just remember that.
Yeah, basically, it seems like people are able to push back against. I mean, obviously, MAGA and Republicans, even in 2025, are not perfect and have problems and all this. But there seems to be, because of social media, because of alternative news, it's like when something the public largely disagrees with, even from their own kind, even sometimes when MAGA gets divided over something, like the heart of the issue has almost gotten too faster in terms of the discourse. It's like you can't. It's just a different world. Maybe controlled opposition has become more sophisticated.
Well, you brought up COVID. Just like during those weird times, they invented terms such as like misinformation, malinformation. You know, information that could just be correct but is inconvenient to the agenda of the government, the CIA. So that could be considered unlawful. So again, this is really simple. Anyone who's trying to control your speech is always in history, even from the Cultural Revolution. You know, like those are bad guys. It's just that simple.
In some ways, it's almost more it's as dangerous. I guess it's not as dangerous, but having no ideology versus having a bad one. If you have a bad ideology, but an ideology, are you more likely to be interested in changing your own ideology even and evolving if you have an interest, somewhat of an interest in having one? Whereas these people who are like
bad information, just spew it out in the free marketplace and let people decide. You know. People
right.
are going to listen to this podcast and they can decide on their own. People have discernment. They'll listen out and see what's more rational.
Yeah, I can't help but, you know? but think of these people who have no ideology, and then like, you know, something like COVID or whatever, like NPC blue-pilled policy the government wants to push on people comes along. Like people just go along with these things. I always come back to that same analogy that the same people who are turning in their neighbors for not having
this is why I really respect like classical liberal, like libertarianism, like the way Dave Smith describes it. I really respect that, because if you go to the roots, like from Ayn Rand and the way she talked about like basically the first rule of capitalism is like you do no harm, you know. So like anything you do to like restrict speech is in a way you're like harming the other party already. So, you know, like true capitalism is completely 100% for free speech, you know?
Yeah, it's essentially part of it for sure. Like you need to have more of this like I lost my train of thought there, but like
Well,
yeah,
there's free speech and then there's being nice. Like to me, one of the interesting things about comedians is that they don't necessarily have to present themselves as, you know, being nice. Like if you were to go walk, I don't know, down San Marcos Boulevard and start asking people, are you nice? Yes or no? Majority of them are going to tell you yes. Maybe you'll get the funny person, the comedian who's going to say no, but like there is this need for humans. We're social creatures. Unless you're a complete like psychopath, you're going to present yourself in a way where you're friendly, you're going to smile, you're going to say hello. Uh, the weaponization of empathy is something that the left has gotten really really good at, and they control like major cultural institutions. So like, of course you want to ask someone's pronouns. Of course you want to be inclusive and like welcoming to people of all sorts of different backgrounds. Then that becomes an HR policy, and then it goes from being like politeness and something that you should do as being a good person to being like the rule of law, and then having like very strict rules about how to interact with people. As we kind of saw with like, you know, wear a mask, don't misgender people, etc. I think there's something related to that, and I think that's the other thing that's kind of refreshing about comedians is that it's a social space where you don't really expect the person speaking to be nice. You expect them to be funny, and those are not always the same side of the coin.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's just an art form, you know. So whatever I say on stage is not necessarily what represents me in real life. I'm just trying to do it as a goof to get people to laugh, you know, and maybe if I'm lucky, change someone's mind, like the way Bill Hicks is such a master at doing, you know. But this is all the same thing that Ayn Rand talked about in like her books. You know, she says like altruism is basically kind of like the niceness you're talking about, and that's just kind of like what the left has kind of ran on and just took it too far. That's why you see all these like really strange like DEI crap is just really having to accommodate for like the lowest like whatever minority groups until now we see like why is there like an abundance of just overweight black women in politics, you know? Like it's just strange. Like, and I'm not trying to be racist like this, but this is just like an observation, you know? Like we kind of just like we took it too far, and we have to kind of come back to our senses, and that's what like the vote for Trump kind of proves, you know.
He also has the most, I think, like I know people claim it, but like the most diverse cabinet like ever or whatever they're saying in terms of, you know, minorities,
like strong women,
black people, women, a handful of Indian Americans, and all this. But that's never talked about in like the media. I figured this like out a long time ago because like I would, you know, why is like Glenn Greenwald not like a hero to like the left and their like their LGBT crowd or whatever as like this intrepid journalist or whatever. But it's all about like it's just like if you're not on their side, you're like a white supremacist. You're just you're less than. Your opinion doesn't matter. You don't have to be even acknowledged. Like your opinions don't have to. They're not. It's like they don't exist. They can't imagine that there's another side.
Can we talk about how great Tulsi Gabbard is? I mean, amazing former Democrat. Not only that, she was the vice chair. Did you guys know that she was the vice chair of the Democratic Party up until 2016 or 2015?
Right, she had a position of some sorts.
Yeah, she was like the Adrian Maligon of the Democratic Party. She was a vice chair. She was in a leadership position, and she resigned when it became known that the chair of the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party itself was basically helping Hillary against Bernie. And so she resigned her position. He said everyone else on the DNC needs to resign, and she endorsed Bernie. And then, you know, that started her arc where she is now a combat veteran, a woman, director of national intelligence. Like, if this was like Elizabeth Warren or if this was like Kamala Harris, we would never hear the end of it.
Yep.
When is Women's History Month? Is that March?
I don't know. When is it? Is there one?
We should. I think so. I'll Google that, but we should be really annoying about Tulsi Gabbard for Women's History.
Not to sound crass, but Tulsi's
March.
really hot too.
Yeah, obligatory.
Women's History Month is March, so just FYI, mark your calendars, gentlemen. We'll reconvene to celebrate women's history.
Yeah. Well, we're doing the Black History Month. I saw Trump had a celebratory thing at Black History Month. It's like Tiger Woods was all there, and he just, I don't know her, Alice something or other, who was just nominated to the
Alice Marie Johnson, who is a friend of my firm's. She's a remarkable woman. Do you know her story?
I did hear a little bit of her story was it some Fox News interview I saw this morning. Like she was in prison for weed or some dumb shit.
Her boyfriend in college was dealing weed, and she got caught up basically in the 1994 crime bill, where the Democratic Party at the time,
spearheaded by Joe Biden,
President Clinton in the White House, and Joe Biden, tough on crime. Joe Biden, who was to the right of Ronald Reagan on the drug war. Basically created this mechanism that enabled the largest prison population in the United States to develop for victimless crimes. And so her boyfriend sold drugs. She was caught up in that, and she was in jail for decades. But she wasn't like from a background that you would expect a drug dealer to do. She was like well-educated. She was, upwardly mobile. And she did things like drama in high school and college. And so she brought that with her into prison. And she set an example helping other women in prison. What did she say? She says, bloom where you're planted. And that's something that I've actually stuck with me a lot, is that your life is going to take you in all sorts of different directions. And I think it's difficult, it's challenging, but you have to figure out a way to thrive in the environment that you're given. And that to me is a piece of resiliency that makes her really, really inspiring. And so her new role in the Trump administration is the pardon czar. Right. Donald Trump, through a great lady of LA, the former Mrs. Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, began advocating for Alice Marie Johnson, learning her story.
I didn't know that connection.
Yeah, and that's how Alice was freed. Literally decades in prison for not really. Well, we all agree here that drugs should be legal, right? Like that's
sure, yeah,
yeah. That's not controversial.
What about fentanyl and something that seems to have no value? Well, obviously you shouldn't go to jail for using it, but
who is in the market for fentanyl? I've known some degenerates in my life.
Nobody.
Like nobody.
It's mixed with other shit. That's the gist of it.
Well,
fentanyl is chemical warfare that's been, coming from China. That's what fentanyl is. They've been secretly putting into like all these other drugs, so people are doing it unintentionally and overdosing.
That's why I brought you on, just to say that sentence alone. And that's why I'm on Rumble also for that sentence alone. And I wouldn't be surprised. Is it? Hey, first of all, America. When was the opium situation in China? Didn't Europe have the European colonizers had a big hand in opiumizing China? So don't be. Why you can send in fentanyl to us? Should be sending the fentanyl to Britain. What did we do?
They blame the West.
The NBA.
Hey, China doesn't give a shit whether it's the U.S. or Britain. I mean, they see it as a Western part of the world that fucked them over with opium in the last century,
Right.
So fentanyl's their payback. Why do you think Trump's doing all this like tariff shit on them right now? It's really just to make them back off sending in raw materials through Mexico to make fentanyl in the U.S. You know what I mean?
Well, the nice thing about being a libertarian is that we have the exactly right correction to all of this, right? There would be no need for adulterating drugs if we could buy drugs in Apple store like weed stores, and
get them administered there too under knowledgeable whatever.
Yeah, because I'm old enough to remember what it was like to buy weed from like sketchy people in college who would have to pretend to hang out with for like 3 hours in order to complete the transaction. And now, you go to Chicago or you go to LA, you walk into the store like the Apple store, you have quality, you have grades. Like there shouldn't be ODs on drugs if there were a free market there.
Right. Yeah. And there's got to be a fine line between what we're advocating for and what like maybe like Portland's solution is, like unsupervised, just handing out the drugs and without like real. I'm guessing that's what's going on. It's just not
Oh no,
real well.
I know how to pick. I love living in cities that tend to be like horrible leftist hellholes. So I've lived in San Francisco and Los Angeles, and then I moved to Chicago, and then at the end of 2020, I moved to Portland, Oregon, and sort of experienced what you're talking about. It is insane what Portland did. Typical sort of leftist government, all based on good intentions, vibes, and what's the thing? Empathy, right? You cannot decriminalize supply without also decriminalizing demand. But they just decriminalize supply, which means that you can openly use, but it's illegal to sell, which meant you have all the purity problems that Bert is talking about and all the really awful side effects of just living zombies. Like it is not the way to, you have to, if you're going to do it, you have to do it all the way, in that it has to be a complete decriminalization of supply and demand. So to sell and to buy.
Yeah. No,
Well, I don't know if you guys heard of Dr. Carl Hart. He's been on Joe Rogan's podcast a few times. But like he microdoses on heroin and he's a college professor, and the impurity issue is simply the fact that we're dealing with a black market where people can tamper with the supply and fuck with it with like fentanyl and shit. So of course we got to legalize things in the federal level, have it like controlled, monitored, the purity test, So this is all a function of things still being illegal. I mean, I've been smoking weed for like half my adult life. I've tried growing that shit organically myself. And then, right now I've heard there's like a bunch of Chinese like psyops, or not psyops, just like co-ops that are doing out like throughout the city. And they're all just, you don't know what kind of crap they're putting into their supply,
And it's supposed to be the opposite. Once you have more legalization, you're supposed to have more, safety. I would think in the free market. But if it's not a true free market and you got regulators pick and choose, I guess you have. I can't speak to exact details of how the system is working in California.
No,
obviously in Canada, it's a smaller market to get into. And I don't know, Forrest might can speak to weed in Colorado, how hard it is to break into that market and the regulations and even corruption with that.
Yeah, weed should just be something anyone can just grow in their yard or their basement, And Canada's been doing that, like they're light years ahead of us because they've been having that freedom that we don't,
For individuals to grow, but to actually sell it, you need. I heard they give out very small. Maybe with Trudeau gone, maybe there'll be more like access to license. What also upsets me beyond like the morality aspect of not having drugs legal is that like I have female friends in other states like Texas or whatever, and that like stricter marijuana laws. They have to do what Pablo was describing for hanging out with some creepy, weird guy for hours at a time. When you just want to buy an eighth of marijuana and you got to like hang out with some guy in some sketchy place. Like it's not safe for women to like, if you care about women, you should support the legalization of drugs and decriminalization, especially marijuana, obviously in all these states.
Yeah, I would say give Trump some time. It's only his 35th day in office. I'm pretty sure it's on his priorities
to decriminalize federally.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think we had that coming, especially like RFK Jr. being in the Department of Health. Like that's just coming for sure.
Yeah, but states can still have their own marijuana laws.
Yeah,
and obviously
marijuana should be off with Schedule 1. It's been like that forever. It should be moved to like Schedule 2 like decades ago.
Yeah, and the scheduling, and what you're talking about, you say Schedule 1, Schedule 2 for people who don't know, is that's the way that drugs are categorized by federal law. And so scheduling the drug, taking the drug off the schedule means that it also opens up banking. So I'm not sure if you like go to a weed store and realize that maybe you can't use Apple Pay or whatever, but you should be. It's because
Yeah, it's cash only
yeah,
or debit card.
that's right. You're a accountant. You probably know this. Marijuana business is immensely profitable, but they have such trouble getting plugged into the banking system because of the federal ambiguity.
Cannabis is too conservative. What AR-15 is to liberals. Yeah, I mean there might be something to that. Broadly speaking, culturally speaking, it's funny because you can't help but get a little bit excited about some of the good things that's coming out of the Trump administration, and just watching podcasts, watching the news, and just like, oh, that's a good thing, But then sometimes I'll watch catch some of CPAC or watch Fox News or something, catch an extended clip. I'm like, oh, I see. You guys are conservatives. I get it. You guys, I'm not this. I'm not this entirely ideologically, and I'm not this culturally and in my personal life. Not that I'm a libertine. I still, you consider yourself, Pablo. You said you were an anarchist, an anarcho-capitalist. Technically, not that we have to give ourselves labels, but.
Yeah, I call myself an ANCAP, and that means a lot of different things. It's a really unpleasant term, I guess. But I like the idea that I know how much government I need, and I also know that I can't tell other people how much government they need. The amount of government I need is zero. Maybe some people need, a socialist boot on their throat, and so they're going to move to Vermont.
Yeah,
and they're going to stay there.
Yeah, I consider myself, I guess, I just say libertarian. Like, it is what it is. If people don't understand the word, if they don't have my definition, I can't control everything. We could try to, support who we support, ideologically, whether it's Thomas Massey or the podcasters we like, to sort of push our own definition of it. But I don't mind being called, like, a right-wing libertarian. I guess I consider myself a libertarian, but not a conservative and not a Republican. I guess because I'd rather talk to my dad about politics than anyone who sees themselves or is a left libertarian, like in the LP, the Libertarian Party, or otherwise. Like, I'd rather talk to a conservative who lives on planet Earth than a libertarian who supposedly has things in common with me, but is just too autistic, for lack of a. No, that is the accurate term, at least culturally.
From a marketing and social cohesion term, I want there to be, I'm fine with Chase Oliver calling himself a libertarian, and the Louisiana party, Libertarian Party of Louisiana, tweeting out trans rights is human rights, or the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire being the edgelords that they are, or the fine, wonderful people of the great state of Colorado who have really set the tone for how to operate as a libertarian politically. Politics is a game with no winners. Really, I hate politics. It is unnatural. It is much better to talk to people as human beings. But if we have to operate, I would everyone's libertarian about some things. Some people really care about school choice. If you go to the Brentwood farmers market, you're going to talk to women who are going to want to buy raw milk cheese like they had in France. And you have to have a conversation with them about why they can't get raw milk cheese in California. And that's that's a libertarian on cheese, for example. We have libertarians on bodily autonomy when it comes to the right to abortion, which is not something all libertarians agree with. But hey, if that's your thing, let's meet in the middle and say that we can't control everybody's life. It is exhausting, and I do hate it. Thank you, Forrest Mommy.
Yes. But she has nothing better to do. She's an honest woman. Yeah, politics is we'd rather avoid it. But I think maybe what part of us brings people, if and Ron Paul woke us up, so we just feel like we have to speak out about things we've learned and believe, because we believe things can change. That's the thing. It's the small slimmer of hope based on our knowledge that things can change, and so it's we might as well speak out. We might as well go to the meeting. We might as well do whatever human action, so to speak, we want to try to move the needle. It is kind of like if you know, so you feel like you have to at least do something, even if it's just talking to a friend about an issue. I get it. It sucks you in.
Yes. Well, there was also a huge call to action in 2020 where we saw like this massive crackdown on freedom in a way that I don't think anyone imagined could be possible. I mean, maybe some people imagine. We call them conspiracy theorists, right? And the last 4 years have been like one lesson after another. Like, well, there are things that you have to get involved with. Angela McArdle in 2017, when she was telling me that politics is self-defense, is a form of self-defense, was right. And then in March of 2018, the month that I met you at the State Social House on Sunset at the Dave Smith came and did a small Liberty meetup with the Lions of Liberty.
Jason Stapleton too, back in the day. Was that one?
Mm-hmm. And that club actually used to be called Red Rocks, and there was another.
No, it wasn't Red Rocks. It was Red. Maybe it was Red. It was Red Deer, Red something.
Read something, but I used to go to a libertarian comedy show there, like way back in the day, like when I moved to LA, 2008, 2009, and then in 2018, it was called State Social House, and of course, anarcho-capitalists are going to have meetups there, and so in March we had Dave Smith. I did not know who he was, and it really changed my life in that he was so phenomenal at communicating what I believe to a large audience. That I kind of got drawn into his show. And then 2 months later on Cinco de Mayo, we had Scott Horton come and talk about the genocide in Yemen for 3 hours while I drank tequila. And
I think I was at that one too, because I definitely met Scott Horton at State Social House.
Yeah, and so like that group, those meetups were sort of organized with the Lions of Liberty and Stapleton, but I had been organizing a small libertarian meetup called Liberty on the Rocks, which is another Colorado-based 501c3 nonprofit organization that I started organizing meetups in LA in 2012.
Did you find that like broad organization?
No, a friend of mine did. After Obama got reelected, I was actually I voted for Ron Paul in 2008 in the primary, and then Obama in the general. And then I thought Obama was going to lose in 2012, and I was really disappointed that he got reelected. And then, but I went to Ron Paul did a talk at UCLA on the tennis courts.
I remembered. I didn't go. Why didn't I go? I must have had something to do, or I'm just lazy and stupid. That is a regret. But I did see Ron Paul later. But go on.
Oh, but there are 7,000 people there, and I thought, oh my God, in LA, there's this many libertarians. I'm going to meet them all, and I did, pretty much. But yeah, Liberty on the Rocks is an amazing organization. I helped start and grow a chapter in Southern California, and I did a lot of great events with Jeffrey Tucker and Matt Kibbe. And then the great ones were Scott Horton and Dave Smith. But I did not see myself as an activist or a politician. I saw myself as someone who's trying to basically meet other libertarians because I felt like something cultural could happen in the second largest city in America. And I think it did, because our little group, like there's a lot of really interesting people doing a lot of interesting things, Adam, you included. Like you make films that I think promote a message of liberty through culture. Angela McArdle, who is a devious genius and an operator of advancing liberty. She definitely made a huge impact in the life of Ross Ulbricht, for example. In addition to bringing, I think it's being said by Nicole Shanahan, who's one of the primary funders of RFK Jr.'s campaign and his vice presidential candidate, that it was the Libertarian Party that brought MAGA and MAHA together. That the RFK Trump thing would not have happened without the libertarians.
That I didn't realize, or I guess I didn't realize that, but that is a super cool thing. And like, just for this stuff alone, like how much dumb are these people who would criticize Angela and the tactics where we've had actual influence at national politics? Well,
politics is a game with no winners. Yeah. That, I think, is what we can say at the end of it. Like it kind of. It's a zero-sum game. It's not like a cooperative thing, like a enterprise or a mutually beneficial sort of deal where you can make something happen in a free market. Politics it's not set up so that you can, I don't know, be a pleasant person. I don't like it. I don't like losing or seeing other people lose.
Yeah. I don't like the suffering, the human suffering. Like, I feel like that's the only Well, I mean, related to that, like you have the craziness going on in Gaza. I feel like that's the only things that could really derail the Trump presidency is some outside interference, some psyop, some whatever, some false flag thing. Whether it's like COVID, why they call it COVID 2.0 it should just be COVID 20. Anyway, that's a different conversation. Some bullshit like that, or like war, like oh, he gets sucked into a war. He gets sucked into something. I feel like there's enough positive momentum for the most part to get things at least a little bit better, broadly speaking, this country. I do expect, like, gas prices and things I do think they will come down in the coming 6 months, year. Just my gut feeling. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I think it will take an external thing. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know if the Democrats even have what is their response to what's going on, other than like repeating the same talking points and tactics in their mouthpieces that have yet to be fired. Like, I don't know what it is other than violence in the street, which won't be effective, but may be disruptive.
The Democrats, and Bert, maybe you have a different perspective here, but like the Democrats seem to be sort of exhausted. Like they've shot everything that they had. They've called Trump and Trump supporters literally every epithet you can.
That's what makes me nervous. There's nothing left to say.
Nazi, etc. I don't know, but we should all get along. I mean, you ask Democrats and Republicans questions about like what's the most important issue in America, and everyone's going to say cost of living. When people are asked like, do you would you prefer more control or less control over the K through 12 education of your child? Most people want parents to have more influence over what's taught to their children. So things like school choice are really big right now. Since the lockdowns, since school went remote, over 1 million children have left the public school system, which is a great start. And what that means is that we're in the next 10 to 15 to 20 years, you're going to see a larger cohort of children who have been educated outside of the public school system, some of them by libertarian parents. And I think those kids are going to do amazing things.
I'm like guzzling white pills listening to this, like hearing about, like, that's just a great foresight centric statement to make. But my fear, despite the estimated probably 70% of the country that is down with what you're describing, it's that other 30% that are still have MSNBC and CNN on in their homes 24/7, and they're getting crazier and crazier. These people are the ones that, some of them are the ones that think that what's the dude that shot the CEO? That guy's like a hero.
Yeah, Luigi Mangione.
Who are the people that become Luigi Mangiones? They're not the people that dislike Luigi Mangione, are they? They're probably the people that uphold him in some kind of regard, who have screws loose, who may be watching this content. But maybe with Joy Reid off the air now, that will be a positive thing. Is it okay to enjoy her tears? How much is that, like? You shouldn't spend too much time, because the other ways you're no better than them if you're dwelling in sort of negativity. Is it uplifting anyone for me to celebrate Joy Reid's tears? I guess we're doing it together. It's a shared experience of celebrating her demise. It is a form of justice, I suppose. As long as you're not spending like your whole life like drinking liberal tears. You have to have water. You have to have a well-balanced diet.
How do roast comics do it?
How do they do what?
Like they're kind of negative people. They're kind of mean, right? But they're really funny. How do you balance being funny with being mean?
I mean, maybe with the roast, I guess it's with a roast, maybe it's ideal if the people roasting you know you and have a relationship. That's why I like, what annoys me about other humans, this is not a stand-up bit, but one thing that annoys me about other people is when someone makes a joke at your expense, but they don't really know you well yet. You just kind of met them. Maybe it's the first night, and they're kind of ribbing on you. And I'm like, I'm sensitive. No, I'm all right. But no, it's like, who are you? What are you, my best friend, to say that? Like, it's like, your joke isn't bad, but like, you didn't earn. You don't earn. You got to earn that. You got to earn that loyalty. But what I was gonna say like an hour ago about not an hour ago, but talking about that Alice woman who Trump put into the pardon czar.
Yes.
It's interesting and cool to see that like Trump is not just putting in some people that were like persecuted, like obviously like Tulsi was being tracked by the airlines, and I guess similar with Kash Patel, but like these other people who are not like prominent stories, like or prominent public figures. I don't think she was, right. She was not. She was more a regular citizen compared to Kash or Tulsi, is what I'm saying. So like that's just a cool thing to see, that like these full circle sort of. It's like it is a form of justice. It's almost like hard to believe that like this is happening, and obviously there's going to be bumps in the roads and problems and like whatnot, but.
Yeah, well, Alice Marie Johnson, like, yeah, she was in prison for 21 years for a nonviolent drug trafficking charge. The role that she's been given by Trump is called the pardon czar. She is going to be looking for other people who are in similar cases, who are basically rotting in federal prison for victimless crimes, and they need to be freed.
I was thinking that. I was almost half listening when the video of her interview played, and I heard the name that started with A, pardon czar. I'm like, is that Angela's? Like for a second, I thought maybe that would be Angela's job as the pardon czar, and that would be a good job for a libertarian person, is to be, or like is someone we like. And
yeah, well, do people know this about Angela McArdle? Is that Angela McArdle was a paralegal in Los Angeles, and she was so. If you are renting, like I rent, you make a contract. And if you're a libertarian, especially if you're an anarcho-capitalist, that means a lot. So if you're renting from someone, the property that you own should not have black mold in it. Your home should not make you sick. The types of clients that Angela would take on, like she's very much in that sort of Alice Marie Johnson pardon czar, but in this case, she was helping people get restitution for being basically forced to live in like really bad conditions that their property managers should have taken care of.
Dude, I just thought of an idea. He popped out, but I just thought of an idea. I was like thinking, which I could do potentially, would be honored to do, because I don't have a gigantic portfolio of work, obviously, but to write and direct a Ross Ulbricht biopic would be super cool, or his story, which obviously is a biopic essentially. But like, even if that's not a possibility, Bert has to go. Oh, thanks, man. If he's watching, hope everything's okay with him. But and Angela, her story is definitely one worth telling. I think like her life could be a movie, or there's aspects of her life that I think that there's definitely a narrative in there for sure, and it could in some ways, like the climax of the movie or the happy ending even could be her freeing Ross Ulbricht. I could see that being a narrative journey from her paralegal. I know she's had personal health problems, and now having like a child and a baby. Like it's like a whole, it's I prefer to have a happy ending, in a film.
She's so I first met her in 2017, and we were talking, and I first met her, and she was telling me like, what she did in LA, and we had a friend in common. My one of my relatives' brother-in-law is like very active in like the gay club scene in Los Angeles, and he's a photographer, and his husband is a DJ, and they kind of did all like the WeHo gay club things. They knew each other from that scene because Angela would go out gay clubs and goth clubs.
Right, I knew the goth things.
Yeah, so which is not something that you would expect, if you just knew Angela from her work in like the Mises Caucus and the Libertarian Party. She's like a fully fledged 360-degree like human being.
Loves heavy metal. She knows all the sub genres. Yeah, there's a lot of things to. She's like I don't, it's like I don't want to have to create a character. Like there is already one.
And then for Ross Ulbricht, do you know Akira the Don, a musician who like mixes like audio with like his own like compositions? He did an album called on Ross Ulbricht called Free Ross that was released in December of 2024, and it's really, really interesting. It's basically letters narrated by Ross and these loops that he mixes. It's really cool. Akira the Dawn is the album, and you should check it out. It is called The Silk Road, and it's like a 20-minute thing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm thinking. My brain is buzzing with that idea. Maybe I'll talk to her about that because I think there's something in there because I'm almost like more because I'm interested in Bitcoin and the Silk Road and all these things, but there might be some like technical because I'm not super technical knowledge about the technology, so that might be a challenge to introduce some of these ideas. But I think a biopic about Angela would be a great vehicle to talk about libertarian ideas in a narrative setting without it being so much, hey, here's our ideology and listen to us, where you see this character who you fall in love with because she's cool and likes heavy metal and has weird friends and likes the gays too and all this stuff. But then it's fighting back against COVID and lockdowns and helping the
maybe you can edit this out, but I'm not sure if
we're live.
Share this. Okay, we are live. Okay, cool. Well, when I first met Angela McArdle,
in the chat if you want.
I wasn't sure if she was a biological woman because she was so skinny and rational.
Yeah,
that she struck me as something different.
Yeah, this is what I'm clipping, by the way.
Yeah, but she had a baby, so she's not.
Yeah. Well, Forest Mommy's also trans, from what I understand in the chat. There says their enemies.
We're a big tent.
Yeah, that's true. No, you were. Yeah, but like I was saying, Trump's the most, the diverse cabinet that but Kash Patel first Indian person to be head of the whatever. He's the head of the FBI.
Yep.
He's a Fed.
And he's a friend of Angela McArdle, as I understand it.
Right. That's wild.
Yeah, he was. So Rick Grinnell, Kash Patel, and Matt Gaetz, I think, were the 3 points of contact that were influential in helping get Trump.
Yeah, she's mentioned Rick Grinnell. I should become friends with him too. It's probably a good idea.
He's over in Manhattan Beach. So
right. Yeah, he's an LA guy. Yeah, just as you're saying, a somewhat like-minded person to connect with politically, who just is he sounds like he's a connector in himself. Is he who he is? I mean, obviously this person did illegal and did horrible things, but in some way, just in my short time, like following him and hearing stuff about this guy who I don't know much about, haven't done a deep dive, but he seems like Mike from Breaking Bad for Trump a little bit. He's like Trump's like kind of like fixer. Go talk to this guy overseas, and he doesn't seem to be. Does he make news appearances a lot? Does he do? Well, he does some media. He does do some media and interviews and stuff, but he seems like more of a behind the scenes dude. Yeah,
mover and shaker. But it's interesting that you mentioned Breaking Bad. So I worked in survey research, political polling, but what brought me to LA was I was working in media research, and we were testing video game trailers for like Microsoft, Xbox, and then at some point I started doing pilot testing where we show an episode of a show in an online survey and ask people questions about it. And one of our clients was AMC, and they had us test episodes of Mad Men. And then the test that I ran was the first 2 episodes of Breaking Bad. And the client told me like what the arc of the story was going to be. He says by the show is going to be like a movie in like series form. And you're going to start with one character, but that character is going to be completely different by the end of it. And so we were looking to see if the right kind of people liked it. And we mentioned earlier, like about being influential and how we need the right people to think a certain way in order to make change in society. AMC's approach was we're going to make a show that's going to be appealing to highly educated, wealthy men. And we're going to win a lot of awards. and we're going to win all these awards because our goal is to sell the company, and we need to, build up this catalog. And they did it, but they did it through being smart, doing research, and then putting out a product that is kind of challenging for the everyday person to pick up, but they knew who they wanted who they wanted to appeal to. So to bring this back to Angela, one of the things that she said about marketing is that if you appealed, and this could be the first line in her one act play or whatever, or her episode, but
biopic,
yeah. If you appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one. And so we think about like what the strategy has been for Trump. He makes enemies. You have to differentiate yourself. And I think another person we like, Dave Smith, talks about like how are you different if you're out there with a message? How are you different than everyone else?
I think I always kind of had this instinct inside me, even before I was like somewhat of a political person, that like if you're not upsetting some people, you're probably not doing something right. You're not fully living. You're not being authentic. You're not being honest. Like, obviously, everyone wants to be liked on some level, but I don't know. Everyone has preferences. Like, it comes back to the whole leftism philosophy, not being, there's no logic like behind it, because everyone has preferences, but they want to legislate out how humans actually interact with each other in the real world, trying to make everything equal, where we all have our biases. I could picture making this Angela McArdle movie, and then like her haters and enemies being like, that movie was so untrue and unbiased and exaggerated and embellished. And I'd be like, maybe, and so what? Like I would want to embellish or whatever, but I would be biased without embellishment. It would be my approach. So if they say you're biased, I'd be like, yes, that is the point. I have an agenda. This, I'm not hiding from, like you're saying, like I'm not afraid to be clear about what I'm trying to achieve thematically.
So when I love talking to creative people. One of the things I love about my life is that I'm not creative myself. I can't write jokes. I can't make art. I can't make music, but I appreciate them all in other people. Would this biopic be like, how do you decide whether it's gonna be a comedy or how you're gonna play it? Like, is it gonna be realistic? Or is it gonna be like surreal? Like, cause I feel like,
I think it would be realistic. I mean, just my tendency is to write more just straight dramedy, comedy would probably be. I mean, it would be a political drama with some, lighthearted moments in there. And I also think like I might not be the first choice to make the Ross Ulbricht biopic. Like after he makes his Rogan appearance, there might be other directors who are going to get first crack at that. Who like, I don't know. Well, we'll see. But there may be less of a line to make an Angela McArdle film. But I think there's something there. We'll see.
Yeah. So the other thing I've been playing with a lot is AI. Like my background is something I whipped up.
Yeah. Tell me more about yourself and what you're working on.
Yeah. Well, I like to measure public opinion as part of my job to inform outreach on different issues. And, a big issue that's important to me is school choice. And it's also the place where I think you can make most like civilizational level change, because public school is very much set up to train people to think a certain way. And if you step out of that line, there are consequences. Some of them are medical in nature, which is why I'm so glad that the Maha people are becoming more libertarian, because I don't think that having seen a good chunk of a generation medicated for ADHD, I don't think that is a healthy way to create productive, happy adults. And I don't believe that they would have been medicated perhaps in another schooling situation that was more adapted to the way that young men operate. So one of the things that we do at this marketing agency I work at is that we help drive change we don't work for politicians. We don't work for candidates. We work for organizations that are trying to increase the range of school choice or decrease sort of restrictions on who can be a nurse in certain states, because we're talking about marijuana earlier. Like if you have in certain states, if you have any convictions related to drugs, you cannot participate in the marijuana economy. You cannot work at a dispensary. You cannot
Wouldn't that
be
be
an
the person
entrepreneur.
who should be working in the economy, that economy?
You would
That's
think
what
so.
Trump's going to do. Trump. Oh, dude, I'm going to apply. Can I create my own position? Can I be the marijuana czar or the
appointed?
Yeah. I'm texting Angela. I have a couple of things to message her about later.
Yeah.
I'm going to CC. She could CC Cash on there.
But yeah, so something that Angela talks about too is sort of their costs of regulation, like the rules that govern who can be a nurse or who can work in a weed store, limit the amount of people who can work in those roles, and it also decreases the amount of freedom individuals have. You know, if you committed a crime and you did your time and you're reformed, that shouldn't stop you then from like studying to be a nurse, for example. And so there are organizations out there that are trying to make these kind of changes at the local level. And we help them with data. And that means if you want to market something to someone, you need a list, and we help you identify that list and put it on Meta so you can get an Instagram ad, or, you know, maybe around election time, sometimes you get annoying uninvited text ads. That could be something that we do too.
That's you?
No. Just not me, other people. But like, that's something we could do. And so, yeah, using that to drive change, to help pro-freedom organizations. And they're not libertarian and necessarily, but they all want a freedom outcome. So I think that's cool. Where we want to help.
That's rewarding work. I can sometimes forget that, like, we can get caught up in like the big issues or like such blatant evil corruption that there really is a fair amount of like the like John Stossel segment type of things that go on. Well, you know, why is government so dumb and so idiotic about this? They're spending money here, but they're doing this and this here. It's like, what's the deal? Like, there's so many of these just dumb things, and I guess that's what Doge is kind of like uncovering a little bit,
very
or a lot of it, maybe.
Yeah, but one of the things that Angela cares about, that people that in our circle care about, Adam, is the world not ending, like not because of climate change or not because of like a cold, but because of like atomic devastation, because there's like a provocation of war with Russia or something. And I think so bring it back to like Scott Horton and the kind of why we do care about the really important things too, and those are like existential, and that they would end all life on Earth. So I think that it's good to care about that. But for my day job, like I handle like smaller issues. Like I'm trying to incrementally increase freedom in every possible dimension of life where I think it's productive.
No, go on.
Oh, education and health. So RFK and like school choice.
Were these always passions of yours, like growing up, like because it's technical and data and math and numbers and charts and analyzing? Were you always interested in numbers and facts and data and marketing and these types of things, and growing up middle school, high school age, or did you have other aspirations for yourself, or what's your history like?
So I had my own little like Dick Cheney arc where I was into high school politics. Have you ever seen a movie called Election with Matthew Broderick and she married Ryan Phillippe. I can't remember her name now. She's a blonde woman, beautiful. But yeah,
Reese Witherspoon.
Reese Witherspoon. Yes.
I pulled it up here. Yeah.
Based on a book, but it's about this terrible like high school election and just how seriously they took it, and it is kind of a bigger like metaphor for politics. As a high school student, as a junior high school student, I would go through our yearbook and basically conduct a political poll and say, okay, this person's going to vote for me, this person's not, this person might, and then use that as a list to like organize a campaign for outreach. And that's like that's kind of how it all started. But then I as a college student interned at the Cato Institute in the summer of 2002, and in the summer of 2002, in Washington D.C., they were ramping up to make the case for the war in Iraq. Except at Cato, they had really great foreign policy people who turned out to be right about everything. Sort of one of those people who works with Scott Horton now, Ted Galen Carpenter. But so I became interested at Cato in terms of public opinion and how public opinion is shaped. So that kind of led to the data stuff. That summer, I also learned who Ron Paul was. So 2 really big things that came out of my internship at Cato.
You know what it sounded like you did? You were looking at who voted for who to be the high school president. You were analyzing that data?
Yeah, so I could win. Yeah, and so I did. So like
so you could become the president.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and, shit. Did that happen? You were the president of your high school? Is that
for 4 years. I was elected class president 3 years and then student body president 4th year. And then I was going to do the same in college. And I thought, I better stop this. This is not a good place to be.
You said you were never in politics. You lied.
Well, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. It was immature.
You didn't become. Were you a libertarian at that point, or you?
No, I was a neoconservative. Oh God, no.
Oh, you were conservative.
Neoconservative.
A neoconservative.
Yeah, the United States should have an empire. Like we paid for it in blood in World War II. And
where did the neo? I mean, you just
it's public education.
Public education.
But
you could have been a leftist.
True, but like I was born and raised in Orange County, California, the town over from Yorba Linda where Nixon was raised.
Okay.
And I was also poor, so I'd go buy used books from the library for like $0.25. And I didn't realize at the time, but I bought the entire Nixon administration collected works of books on foreign policy and real politics. And that definitely influenced how I saw the world.
It's funny. Yeah, I was thinking that you were studying the high school marketing to maybe not to win the presidency, but you did it for power is what you did it. But I thought it was like some sort of like you're like a nerd trying to like figure out what makes people popular. How do I become popular? Or what, just studying what makes someone popular. I thought that's like what the secretly high school, you were using science and math to determine why a person might be popular in high school.
Then I had great family connections. I have a very large Mexican family, and like they all kind of went through that high school, so everybody knew who my family was, and a lot of them played football. So like, I didn't have to worry about being beaten up because I'd say, "Do you know who my cousin is?" And like they would stop. And so that sort of level of like social whatever gave me a lot of space to be a happy nerd and kind of in my own world.
Yeah. I've talked to a few people like that on the pod. It's always interesting to hear people's like histories and like their high school experience or whatever, and that was like. And I've talked to a handful of people who had that like sort of, oh, I was a nerd, but I was protected because of this, and this situation, so I was free to do whatever. Or I rode someone's coattails. I've got a few people like that. I'm like, oh, I wasn't cool or popular, but I just happened to be friends with someone else. My older brother was cool or something.
But I graduated from high school in 1999. And at that point, like I do remember seeing some horrific things happen to kids who were a little basically openly gay. Like I feel bad for not saying anything now, but like, yeah, it was not easy for some people in public high school.
Yeah.
And I do remember, like, if anyone knows who Michael Malice is, he's a great podcaster. He has this little line about public schools being the only place where millions of people are ever going to experience physical violence in their whole entire life.
Right. It's the only place where some people experience violence in their entire lives is in public education system. And not only that, it's the place where you're supposed to be the most protected.
Yeah, and it's true. Oh, and also shout out to my Colorado folks. In April of 1999, Colorado was top of mind for me because the Columbine thing happened too, and that was kind of a weird precedent-setting trend in American life.
I remember that. That was a fun. I get nostalgic about certain tragedies. Those were the days.
You never forget your first high school shooting is what the takeaway is there, and that's another like
that's in the news or something like that, or obviously if you're there.
I think that was like the first one. That was the first, and
before it was cool.
Yeah,
I keep saying all the wrong things. Keep going.
Well, here's the problem with being libertarian. Like, yeah, we believe in the Second Amendment, even though terrible things are going to happen, and it's not easy to talk about. But like, bad things are going to happen in the world. You can't protect against them with like rules that are set up in such a way to try to predict every outcome.
I think that like almost like the abortion issue. There's so many things that we can do in our society and through legislation, through our culture, where we can foster less of a demand for abortions, like in the same way where we can foster less of a society that drives people to like, want to shoot each other and shoot up schools. Like we don't need a gun law. We need to like lower inflation so people can live their lives and be happy and have a family and want freedom, and we shouldn't throw people in jail for smoking weed. Like if you do all these other things, we shouldn't let crazy left-wing nutcase Karens get in power so the male population hates themselves. Like there's all these things you can do to limit abortions, to limit violence in society without like even in this case outright prohibition. Like prohibition just seems to create black markets, and I say that as someone who's at least like sort of philosophically pro-life and whatever.
Well, I'm a gay man. I have very very little like skin in that specific game of like abortion choice, but like it is taking a life, and you can't, you have to reconcile like that. There are people who talk about abortion in such ghastly ways. Like
that's what's changed. That's what's changed and turned me off and pushed me to become the right-wing libertarian is the fact that it became celebrated. I mean, we all see these clips of Bill Clinton saying, "Oh, it needs to be safe and rare is like the abortion thing." Now it's like outright celebrated, and it's like there's such loonies like on that side of things. It's like they should abort themselves.
It's a real difficult situation to talk about. But there is this thing also like, and I think part of my turn to what we consider more right side of libertarianism is people like Dave Smith who make the point that libertarians believe in the legalization of all drugs. Libertarians believe in the legalization of prostitution. But if you're a libertarian, do not exalt these things. You do not want your female relatives to be sex workers. You don't want people to be high in public parks or around kids like we see all the time in cities like Los Angeles and Chicago. Like that's not something that we want to promote. But we can't use state power to do that. So we do have the power of our own judgment and our own social networks and how we police those people. And I think that's where we start sounding like right wingers, because we start talking about morality.
Yeah, and I think that's what sort of like made me become more like right wing is like talking the morality aspect, like infusing that into more like my worldview, political view, and bringing that more to view and whatnot into purview. Is that the right word term? And then thinking about culture, also like how much culture matters is like something that can be, outside of the political, where right wingers can care more about. They're not good at it always, or ingratiating themselves into the culture, but that's also important for sure.
Did you like the Super Bowl halftime show?
I didn't really watch it or pay attention to it. I didn't have a strong opinion in one way or another about it. Maybe I'll watch it, but have the words up on the screen. Like, I guess because he has sort of a mumbly style. I don't know much about Kendrick Lamar. I haven't listened to rap since 2004. No, I don't know.
Yeah, I watched it because I like the spectacle. I like the sort of theater of it. And Kendrick Lamar is a Los Angeles figure, and I see Los Angeles as a near and dear place. So I watched it. I don't understand the sort of the backlash against it, but
There hasn't really been much. I think there's almost like a knee-jerk reaction from like some elements of MAGA on Twitter that like they just see certain things or hear certain things and they're triggered to respond in a certain way, especially when they know it's going to get some kind of engagement. That's why I do this thing where when a story breaks or there's like news about something or a cultural event happens, I don't always publicly express my opinion about every single thing on social media right away the second thing sometimes happens. I like to sometimes hear other people's opinions and then, weigh them against each other. Like I did not even watch the halftime show. I don't know.
Did you watch the game? Do you watch sports?
Yeah. What's funny about sports and even sometimes like culture and politics is that we're in this weird world where sometimes I don't even watch the political speech. I don't watch the game. I don't watch the halftime show. but I will consume hours of analysis and podcasts and conversations and have conversations about things that I didn't even pay attention to. And yeah, and not necessarily even have an opinion on it, but like it's
I love the social aspect of it. So the act of watching the game in a group of people, like the Super Bowl, it's always fun, to have drinks, whatever. I can't watch MMA. It's just too brutal and violent for me. I can barely deal with.
You know what you got to do. You know what you got to do. I'll be honest with you, because I don't watch MMA, and I kind of think generally the same too. But I do like boxing. But you know what you do. You know what will get you into MMA? Put money on it.
Oh well.
If you put money on it, you will get into the game. It's funny. Money adds and this is not even a bad thing. It just adds stakes to things. It can make watching, consuming a sporting event more fun and more engaging. But also, I think about hiring people for jobs and gigs. Even if you're not, if it's a freelance thing, obviously I work in entertainment and independent film world and all this, just paying people something versus nothing, it just totally changes the dynamic and the relationship in the experience of a job or consuming an event that you're more emotionally invested when there's money involved, even if it's not a lot.
Yeah.
It's weird like that. You could put $5 on an MMA and you're going to be yelling. Maybe as loud as you would if you put more. I don't know. Just because you're getting invested and excited. Because the thought of winning. Everybody wants to win. Who doesn't want to win? This Trump guy's onto something with all this talk about winning. He seems to. I was joking with my buddy that we're going to start a men's book club, and the first book is Art of the Deal.
Mm-hmm.
Second book is End the Fed, Ron Paul, and third book is some kind of steak cookbook or something like that, a steak recipe cookbook.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Have you ever? So I totally would love to go to a big MMA ticket game in Las Vegas or Madison Square Garden or match.
You were doing good. That sounded gay.
Yeah.
You were doing good, but then you called a MMA game. So
a round. I'm not sure what you call it, but yeah, it's just so bloody. But there is some glamour to being ringside and seeing all these people come in, and it's kind of like a Roman Coliseum thing.
It is, and then there's something very sort of American about it. It's just there's that, and I've been to wrestling, actually, WWF before, but I haven't been to boxing. But something about the ring and the center and the competitors and the fans, and you got fucking rich dudes and public figures and celebrities, and the people dress up a little bit more at fights than they do any other sport. The biggest ones are Saturday night or Friday night, but really Saturday night is the fight night. Versus other even American sports where it's just people wearing jerseys and whatnot, but the fight is it's more like a place. It's a place to be seen.
We got to make Americans dress up again. How do we get that to happen? Because just people dress so terribly. I see it a lot in airports. I see it in public areas. It's not great.
Yeah,
what's going on here?
We're becoming boomer right-wing boomer cons. But you're right, and I'm not a fancy, sophisticated dresser, but I tend to agree, and I tend to often dress better than people around. Not everyone, but
I want to test. I want to let the audience at home know that let it be known that Adam Choit wears well pressed, clean clothes, which is
thank you.
Which makes you stand out in 2025 in America.
Thank you. What the hell was I going to say? Oh, you know what I like to do? I like to, when other people are underdressed, or not even underdressed, when something's real casual, I like to dress a little bit more formal. I'll wear jeans when everyone's wearing shorts. I'll wear shoes to the beach, not dress shoes, but I'll wear, I'll outdo the other people in their casual. But when other people are more, it's all relative or something.
You're oppositional is what you're saying.
We need to make dress-up clothes comfortable, says Courtney. You know what I think is changing the game a little bit? I feel I don't know anything about jeans or pants, but I think a lot of these jeans out there, they're stretchy pants, and now they got sweatpants, kind of almost like jeans. And I don't know, I can't tell that they're like almost like pajama or sweatpants jeans or like stretchy jeans. And now they got like stretchy jeans that are more like form fit. Form fitting, not skinny jeans, but like form fitting jeans that are like stretchy. So like that's good. Makes suits comfortable. That's what I hate most about wearing suits is that I feel like so like restricted, like
It's because you have such broad shoulders. You need to get them tailored a little bit.
No,
maybe.
I just don't like. I don't know. I mean, I look good. I feel okay in a suit. Like you feel confident. It's good, but like I feel constricted. I don't know. Where did that even come from? Who decided that like a man wearing a suit is like an attractive formal look? I don't get like the psychology behind it. I know that there's like I've talked about this on the show how like even like a baby or like certain physical characteristics are sort of objectively attractive and or beautiful. Like babies will react more to certain faces that are more symmetrical and to attractive people. But like, what made humans decide that like a tie and a sport coat that is what looks? I guess it's the material, the cut. Yeah.
I don't know. So there are trends in suits. Like you see RFK wearing narrow ties, more common in suits that you'd see in the 60s that were kind of back in vogue when Mad Men was popular for a while.
Yeah, I like the narrow tie. Narrow ties were popular for a minute, and then I think they disappeared, and now they're kind of like in between the thick and the narrow tie. The narrow ties seem less popular now than they were maybe even like 5, 6 years ago. I just feel like if the aliens came down and they've probably been here, but if they saw like if you took an alien to like and you saw like a lineup of people dressed different ways, t-shirt, suit, whatever, they would be able to tell which person like is dressed the most formally. And I can't explain why that is, but I feel like the alien would like, oh yeah, tuxedo. That does look like formal wear. They like understand that shit. I don't know what it is. It's just.
I believe also the history of the tuxedo is that it was made because it was comfortable. It was the tuxedo coat is like a coat that you would wear if you're riding a horse.
It's a little more flowy, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know how that became like super formal wear either. Did you mention that tie was like a Roman thing?
That what? Oh, I didn't say what it was. I just said just complaining about ties choking me in so many words.
Well, you could try bow tie.
Yeah, bow tie and a t-shirt. I saw someone wearing a tuxedo t-shirt just in the regular life, which is cool.
Sounds classy.
Because
I should have worn one.
Not a novelty, because it's a novelty, but they were just wearing it in their regular life. How would you plan to make America dress great again? What's the
I have no idea.
Well, they had the Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, and I never watched it, but it wasn't about really. If I'm guessing, it wasn't like, hey, you gotta dress gay. It was just like, hey, let's help these straight guys dress better. Was that generally the premise?
Yeah, it was kind of like Jordan Peterson did for certain guys as well. You tell them to do basic things like clean your room. Like similarly, I think a lot of Queer Eye was like, wear a shirt that fits.
Women dress like shit too. We're ragging on guys, but they got their fat asses hanging out with their open toes, the Crocs, and all this shit, and like. A lot of people, women, it's everyone, equal opportunity.
Yeah, I think the pandemic did not help.
Yeah.
I think living on, well, I don't know, for most of us, like I'm lucky I was able to work remote for the pandemic, basically doing this, on my computer, typing away, sending emails, doing calls here and there. But yeah, it did definitely change like the way I wear shoes. Like I don't really wear shoes anymore. And so when I go out, like it's changed my my ability to wear shoes for a long time because my toes aren't used to it.
Are you into fashion? Are you male or female or both? Like you're just. Yeah, like,
I wear dresses.
You what's that?
No. No, I used to wear like shirts, sport coats a lot and slacks and like not ties but dress shirts. But I stopped all that. But
even beyond that, like you're not like watching all the fashion shows, shopping. Like it's not you're not into fashion like some of the other gays is what I'm kind of asking.
Well, have you ever seen any fashion shows on YouTube? Like some of them are really, really they're like shows. They're like there's like a story. Like Alexander McQueen was a British designer in the 90s who did shows that were like the history of Scotland, or the Plato's Republic, like books, but in fashion form, where his art was like fashion, and they had really cool music. And so even today, I learned who Paul Oakenfold was because they played him at a fashion show in like the late '90s. Like I didn't.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say you're more interested in like the history of fashion and some of these other things beyond just like that's a pretty outfit, or like these fashion shows like in Paris and New York City where people are dressed like freaks. Essentially, that's not really what
Well,
you're as
I
into.
like that too because I like the circus aspect of it, the kind of the freak show of it.
Yeah, I get that.
But one of the have you seen a movie called The Devil Wears Prada?
Yes.
Do you remember a scene where Devil Wears Prada is based on Vogue magazine and its editor, who's kind of like the Pope of like fashion? There's a scene where she's talking about, this is cerulean blue. We're choosing it for the fall runway this year, but in 6 months, it's going to be in every Walmart. And one day you're going to buy a sweater that's cerulean blue off of a thrift store rack, not understanding that we chose that color. Like, she is right. She's talking about how culture propaganda is spread in a society, and how it comes not from books, but from entertainment.
Dude,
Fashion.
you got to be the fashion czar. You're the fashion czar. I'm the weed czar. There's some positions that are still, I think, up for grabs. These may not exist yet. Make fashion great again. That's apparently that we're
Potentially.
doing that.
I'm not the right person. I appreciate
it's
it.
It's not fashion. It's more dressing. I guess good fashion because it flows well.
Yeah, you're in LA. Do you know Rick Owens?
That rings a bell, but maybe not.
He's a designer. He wears like black leather high top shoes and sells like $800 black hoodies. And like,
I can't imagine why I don't know him. Yeah, go on.
but like, him. Yeah, he's to me a very like Los Angeles sort of like fashion figure. Very cool. Also, influences culture in a lot of really interesting and strange ways. But LA based. Really cool. Someone who I think is pretty on the edge of like where his like he'll wear like oversized like sport coats and like black high tops and jeans and a black tank top, and like somehow that is like $8,000, but it's also like dressing okay, dressing good if you're a male who's tall and thin. But yeah, I think he has a lot of interesting looks. And his fashion like inspires like sci-fi films. Like if you've seen Dune, the Denis Villeneuve movie, the Harkonnens are very much that are wearing black leather and bald are very much inspired by some of his like his models or whatever.
Yeah, he looks like Iggy Pop, this guy or whatever, skinny, long hair.
Yeah, and all of he uses Iggy Pop in some of his and punk music in a lot of his shows. Another place where like fashion and music come together, I think in interesting ways, culturally influential ways. Yeah. Fifth Element, Paul Gaultier. Someone said, have you seen Fifth Element?
It's been a minute.
Oh man, great film with Bruce Willis. Poor Bruce Willis, who has dementia. I think he has early onset Alzheimer's. But Jean-Paul Gaultier was a French designer who did the costumes for that. Very, very cool and modern looking as well. But yeah, clothes are important. I don't think you have to be like, like cutting edge avant-garde fashion, but like, yeah, just don't be a slob.
Yeah. People just don't know, I guess. Yeah, I guess it's a different world. Maybe things will come back. Like there is something to be said for like the cyclical element. What I was thinking about the other day is like, what is the next, like you're pushing for more of a formal, you appreciate this wilder fashion too, but what you're saying is you want almost people should dress a little more formal, conservative, not sloppy or whatever. But like for the blue-haired Karens with the septum piercings and half of their heads shaved, like where is their fashion going next? I mean, is it just like more extreme self-mutilation? I'm gonna say it like not that could you love yourself if you have a face tattoo? I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I also don't know. I also don't know about tattoos. One of the reasons I think that RFK is interesting to a lot of libertarians is that at least in LA, like the headquarters for Ron Paul in 2008 and 2012 was in Venice Beach, California, and it was this interesting intersection of like hippies and like yoga people and like right wing like gold bug gun loving like people.
That was a
And
big
me.
thing. I was gonna say that was a big thing probably around 2008. Is that what you're referring to? That camp or 2012 or both?
Both.
Yeah, I wasn't into it until 2012, and I hadn't been over there. But the Monsanto, I remember like anti-Monsanto marches seemed to be more prominent around that time, 2011, 2012 even. Like and there was a lot of crossover, like you were saying, with concerned moms, libertarians, just left wings who care about what they're putting in their body.
Yeah, and some of those people will talk about like, well, maybe tattoo ink isn't great for your body. Maybe it's something that down the line could cause issues like autoimmunity or whatever. And so like,
but tattoos been around for a long ass time. And that's not the case. So hasn't it been?
Not in the wild colors that we see now. So there is advances in all sorts of technology. So if your tattoo ink is black and it's made from like a well-known source of ink that's been around for 1,000 years, sure. But if it's like this, like pink or green or sort of interesting new novel, like they have the glow in the dark one type things.
I see.
Yeah, maybe there's something there. Do you follow Lindy Man on Twitter?
Who's that?
Lindy Man.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Guy named Paul Scalis, and Paul Scalis popularized a term called Lindy, and Lindy just means something that's old, so, something that's been around for a long time.
Like Lindy Hop.
I guess I'm not. Yeah, because Lindy Hop's a dance, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but Paul Scalis talks about Lindy and the Lindy effect. That so his Twitter handle means that the Lindy effect is something's been around so long, it's good. It lasts because it's Lindy. There's another guy named Nicholas Nassim Taleb, who is a big data investor guy who liked Ron Paul in 2008 and 2012. But he would talk about things being fragile or anti-fragile, and things that are thousands of years old and known to a culture are good. So like he wouldn't eat a banana because there was no Greek word for banana, but he'd be fine with oranges because oranges have been eaten for like 2,000 years, whatever. Kind of the similar idea behind Lindy effect. So Taleb is and Paul Scalis are both telling you like, and maybe this is where it comes down to conservative. If something lasts a long time, maybe don't remove it out without thinking about what the consequences of removing it would be. Like things like marriage, things like I don't know, not getting tattoos that are like phosphorescent green. Just think about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's part of my conservative journey is not reveling, but being aware, like being more conscious of traditions. There's traditions are the traditions because it's something that's like working. What is a tradition and what is a trend? Think about it. I think we can answer a lot of questions about society. What is a trend and what is long lasting and real? These are the important questions that I try to ask myself, I guess.
So is Trump a trend, or are the Maha people a trend? Are the people who want to end the Fed a trend, or is this a long-lasting like impact? Like, how do we?
Well, I think it remains to be seen if you have the long-lasting impact. But the ideas are certainly not a. Those ideas transcend trends certainly, but whether it leads to permanent, good things happening, like you're saying, remains to be seen.
Yeah. Well, I think people like you and people like your guests have to really talk about cultural influence. One day, Adam, I sincerely hope that you and people in your network, like Dave Smith, et cetera, Robbie the Fire, decide what is funny in a room somewhere, and it becomes like the global standard for comedy. And because if you had that kind of influence, like that is how we would change society, so that we'd have a freer society where we can make jokes and you can be ourselves and not have to worry about ever going through another censorship regime like we did in the last few years.
Yeah, and there's great comics out there. They don't need me to do that, but yeah, I would like to do more shows in the future, and a lot, some of these comics out there that are good and based and whatnot and are in the universe of our views. A lot of them are actors too, and I would love to, like, I'm talking about, like, write something for someone who I respect on a personal on a level outside of their acting ability, because of, like, who they are and what they stand for outside of, like, I would like every comedian who also is an actor or has acting ability who stood up against lockdowns and mandates during COVID and all this stuff. Like, I would love to, like, work with all these, like, people. Like, I would love to work with, like, Rob Schneider or something. Like, how cool would, like, that be? Like, that's sort of like my, long part of my long-term thing, that, shoot for things like that and whatnot.
Yep.
Would be cool. And put out, like, like I'm saying, focus on story and entertaining, and not leading with the ideology. But, like, I want to be sort of led by what I'm most passionate about and care about, but in my work, you have to lead with story and entertainings, and respecting your audience and making them happy, and serving, being a servant for people, what people like and what they want, is cool. And it comes back to, like, what you're talking about with, like, the marketing. That's something I need to get better at. And, like, and it, what it is, how does your personal empathy tie into your work as a marketing, like, your ability to understand how humans feel? How does that tie into the sort of data and technical world?
I have a very clear bias. I have a very, like, I'm very upfront about it. Like, I believe that we live in a world that was built maybe with the best of intentions, but has gotten terrible outcomes. Public school in the United States is based on the Prussian model of education.
Right.
In the 19th century, the Germans had the worst idea, probably until the 20th century, which had a list of very obvious bad ideas that they had. But as a people, they decided to unify Germany, or some people decided to unify Germany. And so they had to create a national German identity. So every child in what had been separate countries was sent to school and learned about something called Germany, and had to, and part of that, they were taught how to line up and how to be good soldiers and how to be good citizens. And that was part of the point of public education, very explicitly. That came here to the United States during the Progressive Era. The Progressive Era is basically the institutionalization of government, to govern at scale. You're a New Yorker, right? So the city of New York is made of 5 boroughs, and those boroughs have neighborhoods like Williamsburg and Brooklyn. Those used to be independent governing bodies with their own city councils, and some of them had non-white Anglo-Saxon product. I don't want to sound like I'm woke, but they were basically Catholics who were ruling their little locality and educating their kids as they saw fit. And there were Jewish Russian neighborhoods that were doing things their own way. And that was unacceptable to the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant progressives who wanted to scientifically govern millions of people, but they had to consolidate the city into these 5 boroughs in order to do so. Top-down centralization doesn't work. Central planning is making square pegs try to fit into a round hole. Going back to the idea, like, there are a lot of kids out there that are unnecessarily medicated for ADHD because they can't sit still for 8 hours in a public school like a zombie. And somehow that's something wrong with them. Like,
I was just gonna express a thought about that, like, that, because I hear that come up, like, more and more as, like, an argument against the Prussian model in public schooling, is that, like, why are we making 10-year-old boys sit in a desk for 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 hours a day? There's something so unnatural. And even my brain is so, like, ingrained into sort of this Prussian model that you're talking about, that for a second I'm like, what are these kids going to do if they're not sitting at a desk? It's not like every class can be gym or band or something, like, or some, like, alternative thing. But, like, there's homeschooling, like, there's all different ways you can go. There's field trips, there's other things. Like, there's so many ways to educate a kid and feed their curiosity, like we've been talking about. This podcast is coming up, and there's more than one way to skin a cat. And at the same time, a kid can still learn math, the basics, the core curriculums you learn in elementary school and in early, adolescence.
Yeah, and so one of the big things that we're talking about and that got libertarians really excited is when Trump talked about eliminating the Department of Education. And people are freaking out. People are really uncomfortable about this because it to hear it said out loud, we're going to eliminate the Department of Education, sounds like you're going to abolish schools. Because again, most people don't think too deeply about what that means and what they actually do.
And I forget that's the case because we've been libertarian people for decade plus. So eliminating the Department of Education, our brain is like, about time. Done that shit 10 years ago. We've been talking about this stuff forever. But like you're saying, these normies, they think the Patriot Act is good and the Department, they think the bills and the departments are they do the opposite of what they don't know that they do the opposite of what their names are.
Yeah, it's Orwellian. And so one of the things that we have to do as libertarians and people who want to market for more freedom is we have to talk about the alternatives and how the alternatives are preferable to the status quo.
And that's what the left doesn't do.
They don't do that.
That's what they're not doing right now. They're repeating their past narratives. They offer no solutions, which I don't think is going to be a winning strategy.
Not at all. And but we have to give a positive vision of the alternative and how this is going to be better for everyone. And people, you mentioned homeschool. Homeschool is great, but not everyone can do it. There are other schools, Montessori, private schools, Catholic schools. I believe our friend Robbie the Fire went to yeshiva. Is that right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are all these alternatives that are better. And by the way, Robbie's one of the brightest people in the world. So I'm not sure what he learned in yeshiva. Did he learn that from yeshiva, or is?
I remember he was saying that like one of like his alternative career could have been or should have been or maybe was going to be like a lawyer or something like that. Like he's not afraid to like. You both are like kind of like nerdy in that way that are willing to dive into all the statistics of either marketing or COVID or like legalese. I remember I think he did some research. I didn't watch it, but like a whole deep dive on like the Talmud and all this stuff. Like my head spins when I like screenplays are nice and neat. They're very readable. There's not a lot of words on the page. I'm interested more in the challenge of I guess expressing a lot in economy, I guess, versus like dense text or dense data. But yeah, you guys are both brains.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's brains. I think it's just
autism.
We're all I don't want to say that. We're all on some sort of spectrum.
It comes back to feeding the curiosity. If you're interested in the Talmud or legalese or COVID data, like and you're able to it can hold your attention, for studying this stuff. Like that's what we need to have a society that fosters that pushes people to pursue what they're interested in for a long time.
And also tolerance of other people. And then, but tolerance in a way that isn't sort of the imposition, sort of like HR, like brutal, militant, vicious, unpleasant, neoliberal, like corporate, like we were talking about DEI and woke stuff earlier, pejoratively, but like, I like to say that there's never been a better time to express who you are, live how you want, be free. I like to live in big cities because it is a great place with lots of different like subcultures. Like you've been to Koreatown in Los Angeles. It's one of the most amazing places in the world. Great communities. West Hollywood is great. They call it north of Halsted now, but it used to be called Boys Town, which is the gay neighborhood of Chicago. Also a great place. All these the different enclaves in cities used to be more separate, more apart, and but tolerated. And I think that was kind of interesting in the way that worked out, because it's the way that civilization has always worked. Is that a city is typically in a port, it's a crossroads. There's a lot of different cultures and commerce going around. People don't have to like each other, but they're going to sell each other goods and services. Which is kind of how it all worked. And then we get the state involved to like mandate diversity, and then problems start to arise. Like there is empirical evidence that shows that diversity training actually increases feelings of intolerance and racism, which is the exact opposite of what you want. And in roles in companies that I've seen where they practice DEI, some of the things they say in after the hiring interviews about candidates who are white, male, and heterosexual would be illegal if there weren't any of those things. And it's really a bizarre, like unpleasant, like way of like trying to approach human relations through like DEI. Capitalism, commerce is way better.
You know what? It's funny because like as I think virtue signaling is sort of dumb and it's sort of funny and I don't really like it. But even more than that, when I see it and hear it, it makes me uncomfortable because with virtue signaling, I think there can be a form of like, you know, soft bigotry, the liberal guilt that's like associated. I see it being, you know, being witnessed just by the way, like, you know, uncomfortable lefties can be sometimes around like black people. They don't know whether to say black or African American, and like those little moments. And you see that more with lefties. I guess you can see that more with like boomer conservatives and things like that. You got something to share.
I'm sharing my screen. Can I share a picture?
I think I can share it here.
Or you share it. Yeah. This is virtual signaling. Yeah.
Right.
This is Nancy Pelosi wearing a kente cloth, which is a traditional like African shawl. And they wore it not because they deeply believed that the death of George Floyd was bad, but because it was sort of popular and of the moment, and these people believe nothing, and they'll just play a role, and there's no real sentiment behind it because I don't think Nancy Pelosi believes in anything else other than power. Same thing with McConnell.
Right, I agree. And beyond like the politicians wearing clothes, that's a virtue signal. Like when people we know in our regular lives, they speak that version of what those people are wearing. You missed a wild ride last episode. I don't know if Tony is still in the chat or not, but he was here last week, and it was pretty funny and entertaining what he did. He tried to call Derek Chauvin essentially in prison, and I think that's pretty much it. And he was on the phone for a while with the what do you call it, administrative receptionist, operator maybe, or person working at a prison, and it was wild. No, he never got to talk to his friend Derek Chauvin.
Related, but kind of libertarians were also early when Black Lives Matter meant something, because there is some evidence of like really bad like acts of police violence happening against people of certain colors. One of the people I met in Los Angeles who came to my meetups, her name is Cassandra Fairbanks. She used to be Cassandra Rules on Twitter. She used to work with, did you know her at all?
I think I follow her on Twitter, but I don't think I know her personally.
Yeah, she worked for Tim Pool for a while, and she was really cool. But when I met her, she was a Black Lives Matter just generally police brutality activist. And one of the cases that she was trying to elevate was the death of a homeless schizophrenic from my area of Orange County, who was beaten to death at the Fullerton train station by police while screaming for his father. It was really sad, really sad. But like, libertarians were early and right on sort of like the problem with police brutality is that there is no consequence to their brutality, like the qualified immunity, which is this legal doctrine that basically gives police a license to kill. And so that plus the training that police officers receive doesn't include sort of like de-escalation. And all that doesn't sit well if you're a libertarian and you disagree with the fact that we've given a monopoly on violence for self-defense to the state, but the state does all these terrible things in terms of absolving themselves of culpability if they do something wrong, and training in such a way that doesn't necessarily lead to the best outcomes. I'm not anti-police. I believe, we need police. Like the police need to show up and do their jobs when it's important. Like in 2020, when I was living in Michigan Avenue, which is like the equivalent of the Santa Monica Promenade in LA, and that was just looted over a period of like 24 hours, like I think everything was all around the country. But the police basically retreated rather than defend property. Like those are where we need them. We don't need them like enforcing like drug laws.
Yeah, we obviously, me and you, obviously, you as an anarchist, believe that there should be competition with law enforcement and police officers and all that, and privatization and all these things. But it sounds like you also believe, as do I, that if we're going to have institutions like government institutions like public schools and police forces, let's make them better and less dumb. Isn't it a thing that also that the Black Lives Matter movement was hijacked early on? I've heard Maj Touré kind of talk about this a little bit, like what was the case in St. Louis, and then it was hijacked by political. Yeah, Ferguson.
Yeah, and so there's also now something called the Ferguson effect. So when police officers stop policing, what happens is traffic fatalities among African Americans go up by 20 to 30%. And it's an uncomfortable piece of data to sit with.
Say that again.
Traffic related fatalities for African Americans
in
places like Ferguson, where there was a stepping down of policing. The correlate of that is that a year later, you count how many people died of car accidents.
Oh, I was gonna say, if there's no cops on the road, I'm definitely driving crazier.
Yeah, and so like there are drawbacks, right? Like people will like liberty and freedom are not necessarily the absence of police. There are different things that we need to drive toward, and there has to be a better way to do this.
Responsibility culture is a hard thing to push forward because it's something that we all are going to fail at some point. We're all going to do something that's like irresponsible, even when we're trying to push. We're going to make mistakes. We're every week we're going to have conversations probably about Elon Musk in some capacity, but and we love Doge, and I think it's broadly good, of course, but I think there's probably, it just seems like there's some little errors or mistakes in terms of like the communication between, I guess, some of the departments may have not have been perfect, and we don't even have to get into like his personal life and things like that, but there's gonna be mistakes along the way.
Definitely, like, and it's going to be messy. And that's the other thing too, is that people want certainty, and that's why politicians, as scummy and as filthy as they are, that's why they're able to like get people to donate to them, people to believe in them, is because everyone here in this room wants someone to tell them that everything's going to be okay and that they have a plan. And the uncomfortable fact is that it's just us. Like the only way out is through. Like we have to navigate our own lives. We have to make our own decisions.
Yeah, we don't. No one person is gonna have all the answers. So it's like, how do you like? We almost like we want people looking for those types of solutions and the one size fits all solution. But it's hard to like establish a responsibility culture when we as humans are by nature imperfect and are going to do irresponsible things from time to time. It's almost like the same thing as like a libertarian running for government, and the job is to want less power. It's a oxymoron. It's a, what do you call it?
Sort of a paradox, right? Like
paradox.
People think that libertarian culture is going to be, I don't know, like chaos, not anarchy. Chaos meaning like it's like they use Somalia a lot as the example, right? Where there's no functional government, and there's just like constant gang warfare. And pirates. Don't know if that's going to happen.
What is tartar sauce mean?
I believe she's making a reference perhaps to short buses. I don't want to say the word out loud. You're on Rumble, so you're not going to get censored.
Not like a South African sauce they use for seafood or something, maybe.
Mentally retarded, I think, is sort of the
tartar like that. I see. Yeah. He's like, he almost left his kid on the stairway the other day, and I guess he found him. I don't know. I gotta get off Twitter. Too much on there. Just watching every little clip.
Well, stop dead naming. Stop dead naming X.
Yeah,
It's called
Twitter X.
now.
I would think he should have just called it Twitter X. I don't like that. I don't mind the X. What is stupid that it's called a post now instead of a tweet. Tweet was a unique name for a post. Now you're just a post like every other platform.
Why do you, as a man, want to tweet like that? It sounds less masculine. Like,
Oh, there's something to that versus post.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Chase Oliver tweets. You post.
Okay. Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
what about Twitter? Is Twitter sound more feminine than X? X is the letter though. It's not really a name, so it's like it's a lesser of two evils. It's like a preference of lesser of two evils. Twitter X. They're both kind of not ideal.
I can't tell you what Elon's thinking is, but X just sounds sleeker. Twitter does sound a little, I don't know, a little silly.
Is X one of those secret symbols that's actually a swastika but reformed to be an X? Like a lot of these like corporate symbols I've gone down some rabbit holes. It's like, oh, if you move this thing this way and twist it, it's actually a swastika when it's actually the Chase Bank logo or something like that.
Yeah, no one loves swastikas more than anti-Elon Musk like liberals, because they are just constantly like seeing it, posting it, sharing it everywhere they see. Like, terrible.
Are we going to get anything actually to happen with the law enforcement, with the FBI and all these things with, I mean, either I'll list some things like the Epstein stuff and the declassified files, but even beyond that, like how about something even more like just like the Patriot Front being exposed? Can we get that? Can we call that? Can there be an official statement that those were feds and maybe declassify that?
That would be great. It would be great to find out what happened in Las Vegas a couple of years ago.
I haven't done the deep dive on that, but it just seems like something that's not going away. I follow the people that I know have done the deep dives and are like, hey, this is a thing that it seems unresolved from what I gather.
Yeah, well, 2017 shooting, a lot of questions and sort of weird things that happened around that. Yeah, Scott Horton, of course, is great on talking and learning about that. Scott Horton's also talking about, well, we should look at the Oklahoma City bombing again as well. I'm hoping that Kash Patel delivers. He's deeply unpopular with all the right people, and I think that's a positive sign that he was so narrowly confirmed, as was Tulsi Gabbard.
If you look at these, like, I guess they're unofficial lists, but there's like a few lists floating around with like, I don't know, it's not like the Epstein fly list or like whatever it is. You've seen a few lists with like those big lists of like celebrities. Most of them are like on the left or not really political people. They're not like, that makes me think that there maybe is a chance that this stuff could be real, because it may not get as many Republicans, but certainly Republicans went to Epstein and Island and have been engaged in awful things too. Like, so I don't know.
Yeah, well,
less of them maybe in 2025. There might be more, but they're also controlled by. But that not everyone is blackmailed by Epstein or Mossad. Some of them are just paid. It's just. They get their bread buttered by AIPAC and Mossad or AIPAC. It's not that they're caught on tape doing something that they're blackmailed necessarily in 2025. Even Republicans are paid off by AIPAC, whereas Democrats are blackmailed.
Well,
is that a thing?
Yeah, it's possible, but
theories.
We know one thing for sure. We know because it was in his divorce, is that Bill Gates hung out with Jeffrey Epstein well after Jeffrey Epstein had been convicted of whatever he was involved with in Florida.
Dude, these people are crazy. We like, our brains can't even conceive what, like, some of that. I've gone down some of these rabbit holes, what they might be capable of and are up to. You know, what about the Anthony Weiner? He's actually in jail, right? That guy.
Anthony Weiner, who's married to Huma Abedin, who was Hillary Clinton's #1 girl. Like,
he had a laptop from hell too, from what I gather.
Yeah, man. That guy was absolutely shameless and sick.
It's all real, isn't it? It's all real. All the craziness. I'm not really I've been mentally preparing for this, like these big file dumps with like sick, depraved things, but we're not going to get all this stuff.
Yeah, in 2024, in November 2024, Anthony Weiner said that he's considering running for public office again.
What? No, I did remember hearing. So he's not in jail.
He's not. It doesn't look like he's in jail. But he wants to run against a man named Epstein in the New York State Assembly.
Yeah. What's the thing that they? I mean, we don't even. This is a dark ass rabbit hole to go down. But the thing that they thought that the cops, I guess those cops in New York City, who saw his laptop, they were like nauseated by like what was on it because they did like the face swapping thing. Maybe you've not gone down that rabbit hole. I
have not.
I bet Courtney in the chat has gone, if she's here, has gone down. I have a feeling she might have gone down that rabbit hole, or some people have.
So we talked earlier about Israel Palestine, and like a lot of our friends deeply care and do work on reporting on that. And it has largely taken a huge toll. I kind of just checked out. Like my mind, I couldn't do what Scott Horton or people who work at anti-war.
Can't do what any of them do. I listen to a podcast and I'm like, just sometimes halfway through it, and I'll be like, "Oh, that's enough for me right now." This is just even when it's being filtered through someone who I agree with, who maybe even have a broadly positive view on a story. It sometimes this thing gets just so dark, and it's like, nah. I mean, maybe less so at this very moment, but in terms of like, I get what you're saying. It's just like we're not, like I was saying, we're not obligated to have an opinion and follow and know about every single global story for sure, let alone national or even statewide. I'm just a human trying to live my life. But what were you saying?
Yeah, no, but we know it happens. I don't have to know every detail that goes on. I know that politics is a game with no winners, and probably some of the most pathological, disgusting like people we've ever thought about are in politics and doing very well. Like I think Bill Clinton is a scumbag. I mean, it's very clear that Epstein was doing really bad things, and it's very clear that Anthony Weiner is a pretty awful person, and somehow that they're all connected to Hillary Clinton. It's just bizarre.
If the stuff with Epstein comes out and they implicate or whatever Mossad and Israel ties and all this stuff, do I have to get on the train right now, or what? How much time do I have? Because honestly, I mean, some people hate Jews. It's true. Some people are legitimately anti-Semitic or whatever.
And they're not going to hide it, by the way. That's the interesting thing. Like, if you actually meet a racist, or if you actually meet like an anti-Semite, like it's not a secret.
Right, which I think is actually better in a way. But I'm going to give humanity and Americans some credit, because I think there is more nuance being brought to the political conversation when it comes to Israel, and like, because there are a lot of, obviously on the unhinged left-wing Jews who maybe even more on the secular side, who are critical of what Israel's doing and the war and all this stuff. But there seems to be more MAGA people, more apolitical people, just people who just have an opinion about this issue, Jews who have an opinion about this issue, like myself, who are not on the left. So I think the conversation is just more people are having this conversation about, hey, I'm Jewish, but I don't think Israel should be doing this, or I'm not a Zionist or whatever. I something about the word Zionism sort of doesn't trigger me, but I think the people who use it negatively, they're not convincing anybody of anything. They're driving people away by saying, I get why it's used and it makes sense, and I think they're using it properly. But I think when you say, oh, I'm against Zionism, it's not an anti-Semitic thing, but I think it does turn people off who might be open to an argument being critical of Israel when you just use that term. But I get why people speak in those terms.
I really like to frame discussions of foreign policy around what is America first and what is not. And like the term America first was came about before II and around the World War I era, in opposition to entering foreign wars. I think returning to that state where the U.S. decides not to aid militarily one side or another in foreign conflicts would be healthy for everyone, because it just leads to less killing. Like, feel how you feel about the Ukraine war. They have devastated an entire generation of young men in Ukraine and Russia. They've taken terrible losses, and it's all completely unnecessary for an unwinnable war that anyone who is not what's the word, tartar sauced, would see. Neoconservatives are the dumbest people on the planet Earth, and they've been running foreign policy for like 25 years, like straight into the ground.
Are they dumb, or is that just? I mean, it hasn't. I mean, obviously, we know it's been the plan. The Wesley Clark's thing with the 7 countries trying to plan. Like, it's obviously been planned, but they definitely botched some things, or some things didn't go as planned. But they still get rich, even when the plans fail. The people who administered the failing plans are going to get rich. That's why it doesn't matter, and funding both sides of wars and whatnot.
There's no cost to being wrong for them, and like, they're never really challenged on their ideas. Like, there is this culture of debate that we're around, I think, that is uniquely interesting in our like little not so little anymore, but this political space that we occupy, where people are willing to go to a debate and discuss something at length intelligently with people that they disagree with. We saw Scott Horton talk with Bill Kristol, who was like the dawn of like the neoconservative movement, and he just mopped the floor with him.
That's almost like a precursor to some of the justice, or some of the at least positive national things that are happening. Like that was before that. I mean, that was a while ago, but to have that sort of like justice. And then you had Dave debating Cuomo.
Mm-hmm.
So there is winning happening. It's weird. It is weird. So as much as I'm on Twitter looking at dumb shit, like, there is something to be said for, like, I wake up in the morning, and especially on the West Coast where things have happened, or it's 8 o'clock by me, but that's 11 o'clock East Coast. Like, Trump fucking had his McMuffin sandwich before I'm even awake. So like, things are happening, and that's kind of exciting. Whereas even during the Biden years, if anything happened, it wasn't good. We knew that, or literally nothing was. I mean, in the man's brain, literally nothing was happening. So, what were we hoping for? Him falling down the stairs? That's going to be my Twitter fun for the day. Whereas now it's like,
no, I would get up in the morning. I was living in Portland for most of the Biden administration, and like, we're on the brink of nuclear war with Russia, or a Russian bomb hit Poland. Now they're going to invoke Article 5 of NATO. All these like really tremendously scary things would happen. Nothing really good. And now I'm just getting good news every morning, and it's so strange and weird and good, maybe healthier. But yeah. I'm not used to this.
And what's almost like hard to almost like say it, because me and you are not MAGA people, or Republicans or conservatives really. But when we say good things about Trump, or when things are happening, I can almost hear critics saying, "But what about this, and this, and this? So you don't think about this?" It's like, okay, we can't. Can we talk? Just celebrate. You got to celebrate the wins. You got, even. Whether in life or whether in like politics, drink some liberal tears, but don't. It's a what do they call it? A delicacy. It's a delicacy. Liberal tears should be a delicacy, not the
main course.
Not the main course. The main course is the making the world a better place, or whatever. You used a better term earlier, a phrase.
Yeah, we want to build a world that is freer, obviously.
Yeah,
and
we have free in our lifetimes.
Yeah, but not necessarily that either, because that there's a huge long road. But damn, we went from having negative progress, where every day we're getting there is the state encroaching on our health, on the way that we spend money, on the way that we can earn money, versus today, where Trump's executive orders are reducing government power. and that has never happened. The federal bureaucracy has existed in the state that it currently is in since the 1880s, and it has only grown for over a century. So this is an unprecedented historical event, and in the history of human society, the most powerful, lasting types of social organizations are those of bureaucracy. If you have rules and you have people who fill certain roles because of those rules, we see it in smaller organizations too. The bureaucrats rule for the benefit of the bureaucrats. Until this thing that we're seeing in the Trump administration.
You have to give credit to this fat McDonald's eating TV guy with the weird hair. Like, you have to give him some credit. Like, he drone bombed people first administration, railroad and went along with COVID stuff. We know about the too pro-Israel, whatever, at points. Like, we know all these things, but in terms of this specific discussion, like, you got to give him credit where credit is due. And I think that's one of the things that's great about being a libertarian, or at least not a Republican or a Democrat, is that we can call balls and strikes, so to speak, or have an opinion when it comes to issues and say when somebody did something good. Like, Obama might have done like 2 good things compared to the 0 that.
Well, one, he wasn't John McCain.
Did.
First of all, the greatest thing that Barack Obama ever did was stop John McCain from being president of the United States of America.
Right. And that's why that was the first. That was 2008.
Mm-hmm.
I helped. I did vote for Obama.
Me too.
Yeah. He was saying a lot of libertarian-ish things against spying and anti-war, and coming off Bush, it just seemed like an obvious choice, and getting swept up in the momentum of the moment for sure. Like, it felt like now it's just funny how like he's kind of like, he used to be so like, I feel like respected or looked at with reverence, if is that the right word?
Yeah.
Versus now he's just like this funny sort of aging effeminate dude with perhaps male wife.
Yeah,
I'm getting kicked off YouTube, but go on.
Possibly, but Barack Obama was a sort of remarkable individual in 2008. He did actually did 2 great things, and they both happened before he became president. First, he blocked Hillary Clinton, who was like the 800-pound gorilla of American politics, from running for president in 2008. She
would have been worse than Barack Obama. Do you think? I forget exactly every policy difference between them, but she's more of a swamp creature, or is she?
She voted for the Iraq War,
right?
When she was in the Senate. So that should, if you voted for the Iraq
that's
War,
why she lost.
That's what Barack Obama used to throw her down, and it was remarkable. And by the way, Hillary Clinton started the whole Barack Obama birther, not an American thing. It was a women's group supporting Hillary Clinton that was going after Obama way back then, ancient history. Trump picked it up and ran with it, and the rest is history. But that's one. The 2 great things Obama did is block Hillary Clinton from being the nominee in 2007, and then blocking John McCain from becoming president. So we owe a lot to Barack Obama for that, and a lot to the brain tumor on McCain.
Yeah, no, we don't know any. We don't know. We don't know anything to maybe the tumor.
I'm just kidding. I have to shout it out to the LPNH guys.
I'm hoping to look at some good Joy Reid memes later of her crying. I was thinking about maybe they can do something LPNH with like Joy Reid crying over NBC's casket or something. There's got to be something.
None of these people have real audiences, so that's great to see. Well, they do have great audiences, except their audiences are all old and in nursing homes or work in Washington, D.C. That's basically the only the groups of people that still watch MSNBC, CNN.
I wonder because I don't really know anything about Joy Reid, honestly. I never really heard her talk pre-woke era. Like, I don't really know her history, but I wonder inside her brain, like how much of what she does is performative. How dumb is she actually? Is she just acting? Is she because these people are so sick, some of these people, I could almost I mean, this is really out there, but like believe that she would believe like Donald Trump or like I don't know or like support.
Do you know who Wendy Williams
Republican.
is?
Yeah.
So Wendy
Talk show
Williams,
host.
yeah, she's amazing. She's very funny. She has a really
My
unique.
sister used to be a big fan, probably still is or was.
She liked Donald Trump. You know, a lot of everyone, like the ladies on The View, liked Donald Trump. I mean,
Yeah, before he went into politics.
Before he went into politics, again, because it made you pick a side. And you know, whatever. The only Trump had a great show. He was a television guy, right? If you ever see any clips of him and Joan Rivers when she was on The Apprentice, she won the Celebrity Apprentice. Great interactions, great comedy. But yeah, Wendy Williams is a good example of what, you know, how Trump could have interacted with Joy Reid. Like I only saw really uncharitable clips of Joy Reid from Twitter when she would say something like just explicitly stupid. But these people are paid to give like basically shitty opinions because that's their market. That's what their audience likes.
It's not genuine. She's not. If you're gonna be stupid, at least be authentic about it. You know, you can't be don't be stupid and be acting. If someone's gonna be dumb, I want to see the real thing.
Yeah,
She's real dumb, but she's also acting some of the time. Courtney's saying that Wendy Williams is now in an abusive conservatorship. I actually don't know much about that, but I did see like Free Wendy Williams. That rings a bell.
Yeah. So here's another question about libertarian society. Like, how are we going to deal with mentally ill people or people who are infirm? Because it's very clear now that
give them all mushrooms.
That it's very clear now that Britney Spears was in an abusive conservatorship, but it's also clear that she's nuts. You know, you look at her Instagram posts, whatever. Not a harm to anyone, but you know, just out there. Wendy Williams is a really interesting case. I think she's trying to communicate with the outside world, and I really hope that she gets attention about her condition. Yeah, and it looks like there are cracks starting to show because she is a talented and remarkable individual, like very entertaining. The art of conversation, Adam, is something that you can appreciate. Like Wendy Williams had a lot of really amusing like bits and ways of interacting with people and genuine. I hope she gets free. We should ask Ross to free Wendy. Maybe that could be Angela's next project.
Yeah, even Ross reminded me of what you were talking about with Alice. What the hell's her last name again?
Alice Marie Johnson.
Yeah, Alice Marie Johnson. Just like the fact that Ross also. I mean, not that I followed every single one of his tweets or whatever, but he seemed generally upbeat, like based on his Twitter account at least, talking about reading in jail and connecting with some of the other inmates, starting like an improv club and talking about some of the different like survival techniques. So it's just something about like, what were you saying? How the environment forces you to do, what was it?
Well, it's like your plant. You have to bloom where you're planted, right? Yeah, you need to be able to be resilient and understand that you can't always control what happens to you, but you can control how you react.
Right, man's search for meaning.
Yeah, you could also be lying to yourself. So I worry. Maybe there's a fine line between being delusional and being optimistic. I don't know where I am on that spectrum.
Everyone needs to be a little. You need to be a little delusional or a little irrational or a little bit of all these types of things to get by in life. Otherwise, we all have to tell ourselves our own like bullshit stories to survive. I watched the Bob Dylan movie with
Timothy Chalamet.
Right. Complete unknown. And I'm thinking about I was following the relationship Bob Dylan had with Joan Baez. What were you talking about before?
We're talking about Alice Marie Johnson and how I'm not sure if we need to be resilient in tough situations. And as libertarians, I think we all need to be. It's easy we all know this libertarian who's gone completely off you take one red pill, not the entire bottle, right? It's easy to lose hope. Like think back to where we were in December of 2021 with vaccine mandates and fresh lockdowns and mandatory masking in public areas in Los Angeles and big cities. Like it's easy to lose hope and to think that everything's gonna be terrible forever, and that change is not possible.
I remember what I was gonna say something about like how her and Bob Dylan had like they had like a lot of up and downs in their relationship. And I was watching these interviews with Joan Baez, and she's saying, they had a lot of pain and she had a lot of mixed up feelings about him over the years, and anger and feelings of resentment and what's the word? Estrangement probably, and all these things. But then just like one day, she listened to his music and just kind of like, let go of all these feelings, and only kind of chose to decide to only think about the good things and the moments with him that made them who they were and all that stuff. And in some small way, or in some way, I feel like that's what you're talking about. Like bullshit, you're bullshitting yourself a little bit. You're rationalizing, because like Bob Dylan, based on the movie, he may not have been the nicest person, and treated everybody great all the time. I'm not saying he's a bad dude. I don't know him personally. I think he's an amazing musician, all this stuff, and I would like to hang out with him. But you have to deny reality a little bit when it benefits your own like survival. I guess that's why you have like left-wing people taking that concept to the extreme, because they think they've been hoodwinked, they've been tricked to think that if they don't support XYZ, their survival is going to be taken away. These people, forgetting even survival, didn't John Oliver say he's going to be sent to the gulag or some shit? What did he say?
Yes,
that's evil. That's evil, because he's smarter than that. I believe that he's smarter than that, because when you say shit like that, you're a fucking gaslighter. I don't like these gaslighters.
So Project 2025, the way that the Democrats spun it is that they scared the shit out of people people who should know better. Many people who saw what Trump was about in his first 4 years. And like, Trump is basically our very first drag queen president. Like, he is very much like, the hair, the makeup, the dancing, the insults. He's like Joan Rivers, right? Basically. Rivers,
people say he's like a comedian. His talks and speeches are comedy, essentially, and the improvs too.
Yeah. And
work.
So people are afraid of him, and people are made to be afraid of JD Vance. And JD Vance is just like a poor white kid who may have like exploited the fact that his family had like addiction problems in order to like tell a story, write a book, sell it to Netflix, whatever. But
I don't think exploited is the right word, but used but anyway, yeah. But I get what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah,
advantage.
But for whatever reason, he's become one of the preeminent spokesmen of a certain category of man in America, who I think has been overlooked for quite a bit of time. And
I connect to that on some level, for sure.
Yeah, I think
especially being of similar age and whatnot. And I didn't know anything about JD Vance. I was skeptical of the pick. I assumed it was some established person, and then I saw quotes of him even like criticizing Trump a few years ago. Yeah, but that was fat-faced, bloated JD Vance. Now it's like bearded, fourth wall breaking JD Vance. He's pretty likable. Like the front runner, I would guess, for moving forward.
Yeah, I've been very impressed. But going back to this is that JD Vance was also made to be very scary to like people who don't really pay attention to a lot of politics, or people who do watch it but trust people like Joy Reid. And it's really psyopy, because JD Vance is a cosmopolitan tech guy, who comes from like poor, humble backgrounds, but he would fit in at a party that we would have in 2018 in West Hollywood.
You feel that when you talk to him, when you hear him talk on shows and these long form conversations. I think, maybe, I don't know if Vivek Ramaswamy is still planning to run for president or not in 2028. He obviously is running for governor of Ohio, but I think Vance is actually more articulate than Vivek. Vivek talks more. He talks more in talking points and a little bit more in slogans. He's so smooth that you almost don't notice. But if you hear a few of his speeches, like, he'll repeat things and talk more talking points, and he's more like prepared. I think he's good off the cuff too, and thinking on the fly. But I think Vance is even better at like just the conversational stuff, even, or just as good.
Yeah, great choice either way. I think Vivek is. he's made very explicit overtures to libertarians, and he's come up with a concept of libertarianism called libertarian nationalism, which I find interesting. And a lot of people, but Vivek is very polarizing. But
because of I guess it's because of two things. Well, most recently the tweet about criticizing American culture and in support of the visas for workers beyond just like ones you can't find in America. So I think there was that, and I guess there seems to be some criticism of how he made his money. I don't know all the details of it. What they call like a pump and dump, some making drugs that didn't do anything and then becoming a billionaire over for that. So I don't know. He's seems like a mixed bag. Like he's definitely. I actually did watch some of his speech today, and I don't know if it's announcing or I guess maybe formally announcing running for governor of Ohio. And he does seem like a politician. Even if they're saying things we agree with, he still comes across as like political, from the talking points to like even going into like the what's the plumber guy, Joe the plumber, and Democrats do this even more where they're like, today I spoke to Joe Biden, today I spoke to a man who blah 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 blah, but it was actually about his own. He connected to it. So it was like a teacher he talked about, but I could see that being like a political thing. Like I get why they do that. You want to connect a human, It's like if a bomb kills 1,000 people, no one gives a shit. But if a bomb kills two young girls who were best friends, who were 7 years old and played dolls together, like that is so much more like a human thing versus bomb kills 1,000 people, no one gives a fuck.
Yeah, I think Stalin has a riff on that. But one of the things that I see in terms of like Vivek versus JD Vance is that JD Vance is now the vice president, so that makes him the front runner automatically. But
it would seem so.
Yeah, but both Vivek and JD Vance would be light years better choices than what the Republicans had in 2016.
I know, right?
Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush, and all these other awful like neocon
people like
dirtbags.
People like Marco Rubio and some of these other sort of heavier neocon types or whatever.
Are you talking about Chris Christie? Are you making a fat joke?
Yeah, that are in the cabinet though, not the kitchen cabinet, not the pantry. No,
do you remember when Trump posted an AI generated image of like drones delivering McDonald's to Chris Christie?
Someone retweeted it or something.
Yes.
What the hell was I just talking about?
But so these people are Republicans maybe, but they're very different from what Republicans were like 8 year ago, 10 years ago. And I don't even think with Tulsi, RFK, and Trump in the White House that this is like a third party won the presidency.
Exactly. That's kind of like what my thought was. And even like, I was saying how that you were right to be skeptical and have an eye on people like Marco Rubio, but I think people like him, as much as like I think he could be someone that turns on Trump or is doing the deep state bidding or working for neocons, whatever the case may be, I think I'm almost like forgetting that these people just like power. They just like power. They just like prestige. They like making some money. They like the job title. They like feeling important. So I think if Marco Rubio is able to have all of those things, he may not feel the need to start another war. He might just be happy being Secretary of the State and feeling important, and maybe even doing, I can't believe I'm saying this, virtuous work. Can Marco Rubio do something good for the country? Like, because these people are, if he's a grifter, at least grift on the good side.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So here's another interesting thing. So I've been using Facebook more now that sort of Zuckerberg's had his like change of heart seemingly, and I've also been using LinkedIn more. But LinkedIn has become more like Facebook, but for like people that I went to college with who work for the federal government.
That guy
Or-
went to
or-
Epstein Island. The guy
or
who
the-
created that LinkedIn. What's his name?
Reed Hoffman.
Yeah, I did a
Yeah.
little deep dive on him not too long ago.
Do
He's
you
not.
know-
He doesn't own anymore though, right? From what
Do
I
you know
understand.
who Peter Thiel is?
He's the eBay. Was he
Yeah,
eBay?
he co-founded PayPal with Elon, and they made their billions together. And Peter Thiel has a sort of halting way of speaking. It's not exactly stuttering, but it's not exactly like a clear.
You saying he's gay?
Well, he is, but like that's
I know.
beside the point. He's a really interesting guy. But in fact, a mutual friend of ours in Los Angeles does sound for his parties in Los Angeles, who shall remain nameless. But anyway, Peter Thiel was on Joe Rogan, and he was doing all this stuttering and like talking to Joe Rogan about like aliens and shit. The only time he did not stutter is when they were talking about Epstein Island, and he said Reed Hoffman, like just like the smoothest, like just because they all Reed Hoffman worked with him at PayPal too, and I think they all kind of hate they hate each other because Reed Hoffman was very into Kamala, and Thiel was very into
The
Trump.
Kamala Harris supporter who went to Epstein Island lots of times was not the nicest person.
Not the nicest person, but yeah, it's interesting that Reed Hoffman is just so in like literal bed with like this Epstein thing, and was so into Harris. And also let's not forget, like a big donor to Harris was Bill Gates. So just
Right.
it's funny how that all goes together.
None of these people are going to jail. Nothing's ever going to happen. I don't believe. But things.
No, but we need to know, and we need to forever associate their names with criminal acts on Little St. James Island.
Someone was floating an idea, something like that. Even for people like Fauci or Hunter Biden who have been pardoned, there's something called the court of public opinion. So you could even almost have some sort of informal tribunals or censorships, if that's the right term, or civil. I'm not a lawyer, but like civil trials. I think there's other ways where you can publicly what's the word?
Yeah,
what's the word? Not execute. What's the court word?
I'm not sure. Prosecute, but
prosecute.
You can also in a libertarian society
publicly convict without legal conviction. I'm saying.
Yeah, but you can also ostracize people. Like Anthony.
Nah, they like that. They'll just go to an island and they'll go to a different island in Europe.
So yeah, some of these people should never show their face in public again. Like specifically Anthony Fauci, because Fauci, like COVID wasn't his first like run round. Like government regulation does kill people. The CDC gives ideas or puts rules into place that are never great. Socially distancing, for example, had no data behind it. That 6 foot, there was no science there. They just said, "Oh, this is a good number, 6 feet."
Of course,
to socially distance. Complete bullshit. Fauci was in office for 4 decades or something like that, and so he was also early in dealing with the AIDS epidemic. And HIV/AIDS is not something that is airborne. Never has been. There's no evidence that it was. But early on, Fauci said, "Oh yeah, it can be transmitted through air or through casual contact," which meant that people who were suffering from this terrible disease died like horrible, isolated deaths because of this fear. Because the science said that you could get AIDS from like sharing air with someone with AIDS. And there are no consequences for Fauci then. And Fauci was also. Have you seen a movie called The Dallas Buyers Club?
Yeah, that movie's great. That's very libertarian ideas, but
yeah, you know who the villain in that movie is? It's Anthony Fauci.
Fauci, yeah. Was he called Fauci in the movie?
He wasn't referenced, but they were talking about how they couldn't. They had to smuggle in or had to fight for the right to try people with a terminal illness should be allowed the right, and this is the right to try. If you have a terminal illness, you should be allowed to try.
Didn't Trump do that in his first presidency? Wasn't that the thing that he had executive order right to try thing, or am I making that up?
Maybe if he did, it didn't go far enough. Yeah. Although when he originally came to office, one of the guys he was thinking about appointing to head the FDA is an investor and technology guy named Balaji Srinivasan, who's a total like ANCAP, and to the point where like he believes that the era of state power and governments is over, and now it's entirely networks, which is what I find really exciting as a libertarian who likes to socially network, because like one day you don't necessarily have to have like a citizenship, but if you have an established network of people that could, I don't know, there are alternatives to governing, is Balaji's thing. And he has a book called The Network State that really goes deep into what if a stateless society could look like. And it looks a lot like Singapore, which is a great country if you're ever been.
Don't beat me with a cane.
I mean, it's not a libertarian paradise, but it is pretty clean. Anyways, this has been such an interesting discussion.
Yeah, thank you
Adam.
so much for hanging on so long. It's coming up on. Is it coming up on 1 o'clock for 11? Yeah, right. 1. Right, we're right on time.
Right on time. It's been great catching up with you. This is a dream come true.
Thank you. So super fun. Thank you for everyone hanging in the chat.
You have great people in the chat.
Everyone's awesome. Thank you so much for hanging. You guys are cool. I hope everyone enjoyed the conversation and hanging and whatnot. Super fun. Anything you want to plug or promote or mention before I let you go?
Follow me on Twitter. I'm at the Data Populist on X. Sorry, I didn't mean the dead name X. On X. And I post there. You can get to my website from there. I'm starting an infrequent newsletter to help people use automation through AI more easily in their Google Docs. So we should talk about that at some point in the future online.
Good stuff. What about me? Who am I? At Adam Choit, Instagram, Twitter. Follow me there. Subscribe to the show here on YouTube, Rumble, wherever the hell you listen. I'll get out an audio version of this episode too, probably soon as well. I think that's pretty much all I got. Thank you, Pablo. Thank you, Bert Hung, as well, for popping on earlier, and thank you to the chat. Twitter forever, says Courtney. Thank you for hanging, Courtney. JC, everybody. Good night, Mr. Thompson, Forrest Mommy. Everyone have a good night. We'll talk soon. Later, guys.